It's a high-tech conversation.
And a low-tech topic.
Live on the World Wide Web via Zoom. Bench Talk 101.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Bench Talk 101. Tonight we have Master Wheelwright, Phill Gregson, who's going to talk to us about wheelwriting and coach building. Over to you, Phill.
No worries. Thanks for having me along tonight. It's nice to be able to chat to someone from the workshop. So I'm Phill Gregson. I'm a fourth generation Master Wheelwright from my workshop in Lancashire here, my wheelwright shop. And there's a little bit about the place. So this is actually my grandfather's bench, and it was my great-grandfather's bench before him. Sadly, when my grandfather passed away, I decided to start using his bench. So it's got a bit of life left in it yet, but and a lot of the tools I got at the back, a lot were inherited off the family as well. So and there's a bit of a mix in there, modern and old. But I try and do as much as I can by hand whenever I get the chance. There's probably a lot of your members will find there's something very connected to the craft if you're doing it by hand as opposed to using machines. But I do have a reasonably comprehensive machine shop next door through this next wall. I think the oldest machine I've got is about 1830s. The newest is probably about maybe 1970s or something like that. So it's all old kit, and probably health and safety aren't keen on it. So not so bad for me working on my own, but not great when I've got employees. But so I make wooden wheels mostly. I do a bit of coach building and carriage work, things like that. So there's quite a bit of mix of skills. I do the coach painting, I do some fine lining, or I try and avoid that if I can. I do gold leaf work and that as well. Again, I try and keep that down to a minimum, but it's nice to be able to do a job from start to finish. Currently, 90% of the timber I'm using in the workshop is all from local source. So I go out with a tractor, which is where I've been today. I go out, I haul logs in, we mill them, season them. So they're air dried for a year per inch because I'm old fashioned. I like it done right. And then it goes in the kiln for kiln finishing after that. We get down to between sort of 5 and 8% is a nice moisture content for working wheels. You go any lower and you're really cooking the wood, you're ruining the stuff. So that's, to me, that's quite important to keep that supply going. And it's been a bit difficult recently because of things like Dutch elm disease, that everyone probably knows about. We've got sudden oak death as well, and different various oak diseases which are affecting some of the oak trees. And we've got ash dieback, which is the big topic at the moment when you're talking tree diseases. It's made it quite difficult to get the good timber we want. I sometimes use American imported American timber. I do find that it's a little bit cooked a little bit too quickly. I got quite a shock. I try not to go off piece too much, but I got quite a shock when I went to the States and I visited Williamsburg and went to their wheelwright shop, and I was talking about the quality of American oak, and then I used some of their oak, and the quality difference between what you get in the States and what you get in the UK was just massive. So I got a bit of a shock with that, really, as to how good the stuff is over there. And I think a lot of the process of drying it quickly and bringing it over and shipping, it's not doing it any favors. So again, that's partly why I try and stick to the local timber if I can. So any questions at this point?
So you're talking about the imported American timber. Are you the quality of that being different from the stuff that's actually not exported from America? Was that what you were saying?
I think part of the process when they dry a lot of the timber coming over from the States, I think it's dried a bit too quickly.
Right.
That's a lot of the problems. So you'd like the American ash is really not as nice to steam bend and things like. 'Cause we do some steam bending here. It's not quite as springy or pliable as the British.
Yeah.
Although I'm finding problems now because with ash dieback, even if a tree is looking relatively healthy when it's felled, but it's got substantial disease in the tree, the heartwood is becoming very brittle. Beautiful colours. It's got a lovely dark heart to it, like olive heart, but it's just too brittle for the fellies.
All
So
right.
I'll talk you through the basic timbers. heard earlier. So this wheel's a traditional British light English pattern wheel. So you've got elm for the nave or hub, and you've got oak for the spokes, and ash for the fellies. So the idea is that the ash is springy, so it absorbs the shock and impact of the road. The oak is very strong under compression down the grain. It doesn't bend or distort easily, and it keeps the wheel running true, which is very important. And then the elm doesn't split very easily. So if anyone's ever tried splitting elm for firewood, then you'll know what I mean. Same reason it's used for chair seats, things like that. So it's got this interwoven grain structure, which is what we're trying to find. So you want the gnarliest piece of elm you can find. And the nave I'm just working on in the background here, this is for a stagecoach. And that is actually that piece of elm has been seasoning in my workshop for over 10 years. And so it's a long process, preparing the timber, making sure it's right. And most of you probably know, working with wood, that the longer you leave a piece of wood to season, the harder it gets, and that is like absolute iron, that piece. Tools have to be absolutely razor sharp for it. But what I'm doing on this one at the moment is just beveling the mortises. So the way the spokes on the wheel radiate out, they always dish forward. So the dish of the wheel is for lateral strength. So this process is making the angle on the mortises to allow the spoke to be on the angle that you need it to be. And especially with this nave, I'll show you now. You can see with this one, I've been seating the shoulders as well, part of the angle, but all these faces are beveled. And because there's two rows, so you've got a front row and a back row. So you want that stagger to meet at the same point where they intersect with the fellies around the outside. So they're two sets of different angles. And we do that with, it used to be called a whalebone gauge, well, I call them a whalebone gauge, but they used to actually use whalebone for an indicating point. Not always necessary to have whalebone, but this is the indicator. So this is I'll come back far enough. So this is the length of the spoke, shoulder to shoulder. And this is the point at which the fellies and the spoke meet, and that gives you the angle then from the straight edge. The straight edge goes down inside the mortise and checks against the front, and then this meets with it. So if you come in like this, you need to pare more out the bottom until it meets. Pretty simple, really.
Are those mortises cut with a bracing bit, or are they cut in a machine?
Some I do, depends on the style. Some are beveled on every angle, which we call a cleft. They're usually cleft spokes or plug spokes, and it's a plug mortise. We do all them by hand. Sometimes I will mortise them out with a mortising machine, just to make it a bit quicker, and then pare everything down by hand. These are actually cut with a mortising machine, and then you leave them off the front by about, sort of in this case, about 3/8 of an inch, and then you pare everything down by hand to suit. Just to get the accuracy, because the problem with your mortising bits, the hollow augers, they can sort of wander a little bit, and not a big problem for a lot of jobs, but we're driving these spokes into that tapered mortise, and we're driving them in with sledgehammer, and they need to meet that face perfect, or else they can be sort of, if you imagine a cumulative error over a 20-inch spoke, it can be quite a big difference. And then you'll end up with a wheel that just runs all over the place, which not ideal, really. So for the accuracy, you put them down by hand.
If you're running that in a mortise machine, is it running around or is it running in the square? Because actually, if you're putting that in a mortise machine, are you mortising it while it's round, or are you mortising it before putting it while it's... Because obviously when it's square, you don't get those faces. So how do you work hold that in a mortise machine?
So it usually bore the centre out first, and then it clamps onto... I've built an indexing tool. Adapting an indexing tool which indexes for the amount of mortise that you have. Always an even amount. This is a 14 spoke wheel. Averages are 12s, 14s, but we do sometimes see 16s. You get a lot of 10 spokers as well, sometimes 8s. It depends on the use of the wheel and the size of the wheel. And if you imagine if you have a really tall wheel with only a few spokes, and you've got quite a big gap between the ends of the spokes as you go out around the fellies, so it wouldn't carry a lot of load very successfully. So it's all about the size of the wheel, the scale of what it's doing, and the weight it's carrying.
Sure.
But it's always an even amount. So you've got 2 spokes to 1 felly, although some apprentices do make mistakes and you end up with a 13-spoke wheel.
Yes, yes.
That's one that you don't let them get rid of. You always make them keep that by the bench just to remind them.
And are the fellies actually scarf jointed?
Yeah, so the fellies are butt jointed at the ends.
Butt jointed, they're not scarfed then.
No, so the idea is find a good one to show you. So we always leave a gappage allowance on the outside. So if I come close enough to the camera there, so you can see. You see how this is slightly more open at the outer edge?
Yeah.
Closed on the inside. Now these are made to a bigger radius. And the idea is that when the tire comes on, the tire bends the end down.
Yep.
So you want that then to bring the joint into being flat. So if you cut them really neat for in line, then you won't get that closure. It'll open on the bottom. And one of the other things we've got as well is that when we put the tire on, we need to ensure that all the compression goes down the wheel and down to the center of the wheel into the nave, or else if it's all tight around the outside, we call them rim bound. And this is something I see so often now. You get a joiner will do a beautiful job of a wheel and everything's really, really good, but they've made them too tight around the outside because they're a joiner, and it's a lot of people say to me, it shows they'll see a wheel like this one and they'll go, oh, I wouldn't have got away with that joint when I was an apprentice or whatever. And it's like, well, there's a reason why we leave that gappage. And if you imagine that the outside of the wheel like an archway, and if everything's all butting up tight, when you put that tire on, it physically can't close into the center. It's got nowhere to move. So what tends to happen as well as being rim bound, the center not being very strong, is that it's trying to compress and compress and compress. It's got nowhere to go, so it twists. And then you get a wheel that's like doing this down the road. And I see it so often. And I almost feel sorry for people that have made that mistake, because you can see that they're trying to do a neatest job as possible, but they've missed that little bit of sort of design that was put in there. So a wheel like this, you'd leave a gappage allowance all the way around the outside. And I still think that people look at me after I've done a demonstration, they walk away going, I think he's bullshitting us, this man. I've had quite a few people do that over the years. You can see they're looking at me like, no, he's making this up. But yeah, so there's a gappage allowance, which is important. So you need to know that it's pressing all that compression down to the center. And some of these wheels, like there's a gypsy wagon wheel that's just out of shot here, that's probably got about 3 to 5 ton of compression down the spokes when you put the tire on. So you know that compression is really going to press down. And if you've ever seen it in person when we put the tires on, and if you're close enough, you can hear the compression. You can hear it cracking as it's crushing it all down. Makes you jump a little bit sometimes. It's like a gun going off. It's like it slips down. But
when you say tires,
so,
do you mean a metal band and not rubber?
Yep. Yeah. So that's where we confuse people. You see, because they were always a tire. We always called them a tire, going back into the dark ages near enough. The problem is that people now think of a pneumatic tire as a tire.
Yeah.
So because they're more common as a tire. So yes, so an iron or a steel tire is what we'd call it, and then we would call it a rubber tire on top of that, which gets a bit confusing for people. I mean, I do live in a different age as well, so it doesn't help fix.
I'm sorry to ask so many questions. I'm just interested in this.
No. This is what the idea.
I'm going to assume that the tires then heated up so it expands.
Yes.
Pushed over the outside, and as it contracts, it pulls in as it's contracting as well.
That's it. So a wheel like this one, this sort of size, I would probably put about 5/8 of an inch of nip on it. So that means the tire that we make for this wheel will be 5/8 of an inch shorter in circumference than the wheel itself.
Wow.
So it's quite a bit to expand and quite a bit to compress. And that'll push all the pressure down to the center of the wheel. And shouldn't need any fixings, any screws or nails or anything. It's all just that compression factor which does the job. And like I said, that's that.
Is there a formula for that?
It's a bit of a rack of iron rule of thumb, because if you were doing an old wheel that wanted some big cracks, if the naves are all cracked and that, you can actually close the cracks by compression. So you would put a bit more nip on one of them. But then you've got to be careful as well, because the more nip you put on the tire, the more dish you will push on the wheel, because as the tire compresses and the wheel's like this dished up on the plate, it's trying to push more dish onto it. So I mean, the wheel that I'm doing here, this nave, That's got about 1.5 inches of dish on the front spoke. So that means that the foot of the spoke, where it meets the nave or hub, and the tip of the spoke is out by 1.5 inches, which is actually a bit more than it should have. But that's because it's had years of being hooped up and tightened up. Although I shouldn't be using that one as an example, really, because it wasn't done very well the last few times it's been done. So that's why we've ended up rebuilding it.
And I'm going to guess then the tyres are actually quite, not difficult to make, but you've got to watch how much you heat them. And I'm going to guess that you're basically making a big fire.
Yeah, so we make
size of them. You've got to make a big fire and sit them in the coals or into certain. I'm not saying certain woods, so you get enough heat into it. But you can cook metal. You can overheat it.
It's surprising actually, because people say, well, have you got like coal fires or coke or gas? It's like you don't need any of that because you can do it with wood really efficiently. And I actually use pallets a lot of the time because it's slightly more controllable. Because the pallet burns out quite quickly, so when you want to get the heat out the fire, you can drag them away a bit and they'll burn away. I mean, if we were doing a batch of 4 living wagon wheels, you'd probably only need about 4 pallets at most, and that's all the heat you'll need. The biggest thing for us is it's easy to get them hot. That's not a problem. It's getting them cool again quick. So you don't want lots of charcoal forming because, as I keep trying to tell people, charcoal, it's not structural. It's no point having charcoal under there if you can help it. And you see this wheel, actually, these fellies were off a wheel that a customer ordered some wheels and then they decided they got them the wrong size and they were actually hitting the mud guards on the cart. So they sent them back and I kept the fellies to make another wheel out of. And this is the amount of charring that we've got off the hoop. That's it. Yeah. So, I'm quite happy with that. It's not soft charcoal that's coming away. But that's what you're looking for. You don't want large amounts of charcoal under there. There's a misconception that you're burning the tire on, but it's not about that. It's about this compression fit. That's what we're looking for. So we're working about 500 degrees on average. So you're getting a dull cherry red, which you can't see on a sunny day, but it's hot enough.
Could you just hold the wheel up and show us how the spokes are going? No, the other on the end. Face the rim towards us.
Yeah.
No, not.
Sorry.
So higher, please, and round, and turn it round so it's
sideways.
Sideways.
That's
it. Yeah. Yeah. So we can see how they. Right. Yeah. So what was that for, Phill? Again, why is that?
This is for lateral strength. So the thing that people miss, if you were to ask someone to go out and to design a wheel on a cart, there was actually a TV program a while back which made me cringe because they had a young joiner come in and he was to make these wheels for this Roman cart on this program, and he didn't think about lateral strength at all. All he thought about was that sort of vertical weight of the load.
Yeah.
He didn't think about any sort of lateral movement, anything like that. And this is what most people just completely don't think about. You only think about the load of the vehicle being on top of the wheels. So the problem we've got is this lateral force. And if you've got a 20-inch spoke with 1-inch tenon on it, you've got a 20-to-1 sort of leverage ratio on that. So it's going to have a lot of force against it sideways. So what we do is we dish the wheels and we stagger the spokes. Now the stagger was something the Romans knew about, and the Celts, and that's around the sort of just before 500 AD. Sorry, I just got to get rid of the call. So it was very, very much known about in the Roman period about staggering spokes and that giving lateral strength. And then when you move on sort of forward towards like the sort of the Romans leaving the British Empire, then they sort of went away from that and they went back to sort of disc wheels. They went back to sort of inline spokes, things like that. So not staggered spokes. And then it came back again, probably most popular about 200-300 years ago. It started to creep back in. And so we ended up with staggered wheels again, which is a way of making the wheel lighter, but still having the lateral strength. So if you imagine an easy way to describe what we're looking for is if this is the wheel, get it on the camera there, and you can see that the dish of the wheel there. So this is the outside face, and this is your axle. And you go down a pothole, all that weight is transferring out the center of the wheel. And this is where the technology of the dish comes in that you can't flatten a cone. It's very hard to flatten a cone because you've got that tension around the outside. And when you put a good tight tire on the wheel, and this is where it's key to have tight tires on them, keep them tight, it's hard for that to then collapse out because your spokes are trying to radiate out and push into that tire. So that's where the dish comes in for that lateral strength. So it turns your lateral forces, it radiates them through the wheel, so it turns it into a radial force. So it's really clever bit of engineering sort of technology that's been around for thousands of years, and it's just massively overlooked a lot of the time. But for a wheelwright that knows what they're looking at, it's great for us to appreciate that.
Yeah.
I suppose one thing that just comes to my mind when you said that, so you've got the one wheel that is taking the lateral load. What about the other wheel that's being brought across the opposite way?
Yeah. So because most of your force is going onto that sideways pushing outwards, it's going to take some of the weight and load off that upper wheel, if you know what I mean. If you imagine if you're going down a pothole or a rut, it's just going to drag that wheel more than anything. It's not going to have as much weight on it, so you don't need as much strength in that. But having the staggered spokes does help with strength either way, because in order to buckle the wheel, you've got to pull one spoke out and push another one in, and that's really hard to do, especially with a good solid wheel.
Yeah.
You've got alternate spokes in tension and compression in that situation. So the one's getting crushed. Hey?
Yeah, that's it. You got one trying to be crushed in and one trying to be pulled out. I mean, we get this problem. I mean, I can talk about the reasons we don't use certain timbers, which upsets people that are trying to make cheap wheels, because we get you get competitors that will use for a while. People start thinking, we can just use ash for everything, and then this is what happens to ash. It just goes biscuit rotten and it snaps off. These are probably only about sort of 10 years old, these last repairs. So for me, that wouldn't be acceptable. This would be, if this came back, if this was my work, which it wouldn't be. If this came back to me, I would replace it, of course. But you can see the lovely straight grained ash. It's lovely stuff, but it's not suitable for spokes. And this is the problem we're up against. If this had oak spokes, and the same with the nave. The original nave that I'm replacing was ash. Someone had made it out of ash, and that had gone rotten too. But if that was elm, and if the spokes were oak, then the only thing I would be replacing at some point would be the fellies. But in this case, now it's a whole new wheel, and it's in a rush as well because they want it for a job soon. So it's not ideal, really. But this is, I've always got this argument of why we use these materials, and I think people, when I complain about other people using the wrong materials, they always come out with, you're just against progress. And it's like, well, we've had at least 5,500 years of using the right materials for the job. Why is it just in this last sort of maybe 20, 30 years that people have started using cheaper alternatives? We're seeing a lot of wheels done with things like sapele and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, sapele is a good wood for a lot of jobs, but it's not ideal for wheels. It can't be every property for every part of the wheel as well. So it's not going to be springy for the fellies. Maybe it would be rigid enough for the spokes, but then you've got the risk of lightning shakes in it, and it's not as split resistant as elm. So you can't just use one wood for every part of the wheel. It doesn't work.
Well, same principle as a chair, really.
Yeah, this is it, and it's like, and I mean, I recently went to Slovenia. I don't know if anyone follows my crazy adventures that I try and do. I went to Slovenia on motorbikes not long back. It was a bit of a midlife crisis, and went to see the world's oldest surviving wooden wheel, which is in Ljubljana, which is the capital city of Slovenia, and it's 5,300 years old, if I remember right. And it's a disc wheel, so it's not spoked. But they knew when they were making this wheel what the properties of the different woods were. And they used, for the actual slabs, they got two main boards, and it had a square hole through the middle, and it was fixed on the axle. So the axle actually spun underneath the cart, as opposed to the wheels spinning separately on the outside, which isn't ideal if you think about differential, because you want to turn a corner, you're going to be dragging a wheel and pushing a wheel. It's going to sort of be hard work. But if it was being dragged by an ox, wouldn't be a big problem. But the way they've attached these boards together, for me, from a woodworking perspective, was just fantastic, because they put these cross braces through, which hold them together, and they're dovetailed. And we're talking in the Bronze Age as well here, so they've used bronze tools. And if you ever get a chance to visit, you can see the quality of the joinery in it. It's just phenomenal. You can see all the cuts where they've dovetailed these cross rails in. But the boards are ash and the cross rails are oak. And they've tapered them in as well. So they're a tapered dovetail, and then they go from either side. So in order to pull it apart, it's very difficult. And then they have a few bindings as well, and wedges in the end of the narrow end of the cross braces. So, I mean, we're talking, this was probably the same distance back in time from Tutankhamun as we are from Tutankhamun. So it's a massive, massive patch of history back from us. And they knew what they were doing with the woods. They chose the specific timbers for the specific purpose of the job. And we're still doing that today. At least most of us are still doing that today.
Mm.
I'm going to guess that a hub that size in the background, that's the heartwood of the actual elm would be in the centre of that turning, so you've actually got the rings going round the outside of it.
Yeah, so that is in the round. So it's what we often do is we'll bore the block, so we'll paint the end of the block, and then we'll bore the heart out, bore the pith out of it, and then we'll chop all the sapwood off. So we're only using the heartwood. So you can probably see by the darkness of that, if you know elm, that's a nice piece of heartwood there. And anyone that knows elm as well knows how hard it is to dry it without it splitting, which is a nightmare to get a good piece like that. But we lose a lot to woodworm as well, and it doesn't matter how often I spray, we still get beetling and stuff like that. So I think when you think over a 10-year period, we probably lose about half of what we put away, or we can only use it for decorative stuff. I suppose if nothing else, it makes nice firewood.
The reason you bore them out beforehand presumably is to reduce the risk of that splitting.
It's just trying to stop the radial splits. Yeah, so the idea, just if you bore that pith out the centre, it's just got a little bit of give to shrink out. Okay. And then we'd often knock a piece of wood in the end either end to centre it on the lathe. It's a slow process, but it's something we have to do. I mean, in some cases, if I've not got time, I will just sort of paint the ends and put them in a cage in longer lengths and let them dry slowly. And you'll lose a bit more off the ends, but usually you'll be able to get like a few out of the middle of the block. So, but again, it's a slow process, and you need to know that you've got the moisture out and you've got it stabilized. You don't want it to be moving after you've made the wheel. It's not ideal. So, but it's worth doing it right.
So with elm being so rare now, or not so common, where do you get your elm from?
Everywhere, anywhere I can find it. I'm quite lucky that in this local area, there's quite a bit of elm that seems to be reasonably resistant to the Dutch elm disease. I mean, they get to a size. I mean, this was a dead standing tree, if I remember right. Most of the ones I get are dead standing. If you get them soon enough, before they get any rot in there, or before they start to get these little cross shakes across the grain, then it's good stuff. So it's a case of trying to get in there as soon as you can. A lot of the trees I'm using, especially the elm, is from within 20 miles. But I've jumped in the van with a trailer on, and I've gone down to been down into Derbyshire and all sorts of places. If I've been offered an elm tree, if it's a good elm tree, I'll be down there for it. There's quite a few around Manchester. I mean, I know it's hard to say now, and it's maybe easy to say it in hindsight, but I think they made a mistake when they blanket felled all the elm trees. And I think they've probably learned from that mistake, because now they're not blanket felling the ash trees with the ash dieback. They're only taking them down mostly if they're in a dangerous position. Because I think what probably would have happened if they'd have left the elm trees alone, they would have found out which ones were resistant or more resistant. And they probably would have had still a reasonable elm population, whereas now we seem to be going back to literally from scratch. I mean, I do get lucky sometimes. I do come across like an elm tree that's like 3.5 foot diameter. It's rare, but I do come across them. To be fair, I often, my furniture making friends usually sort of lean on me a bit to mill them for some bits for chair seats, which I don't mind doing that. I think it's nice to keep the bits of traditional crafts going. So if I can provide a bit of elm for me and a bit of elm for them. It's great.
Does wych elm work?
Yeah, wych elm's good. I mean, I always kind of preferred common elm. To be fair, there's not a lot of difference in them. I find the wych elm can be a little bit straighter grained. But again, it just depends on the tree itself. It can be growing street trees. Some of the street trees I get, full of nails sometimes, but that's a risk you take. But some of them are really twisty and gnarly and really sort of contorted grain, which is great for the naves. Some of them are really straight grains. So it's just, I think the situation, the ground they're grown in, everything affects how a tree grows. So I think to say that there's any one sort of trait to either sort of subspecies, it's hard to say.
Because you ever use hornbeam?
Yeah, so I've heard of hornbeam used, mostly used down in the south. Don't get a lot of hornbeam in this area where I am.
No.
I mean, hornbeam was good as well. It was often, you see it used for axles, and it's very hard wearing, which is one of its good things. And it is hard to split, as you probably know. I had some hornbeam coming as firewood, and that nearly killed me cutting that up. I did put some away for naves, but again, I struggled with woodworm with that. So they seem to really, really favour the hornbeam. But yeah, and you also see in some areas as well, you see applewood used as well. If you've got a really sort of curly stock of applewood, that makes good naves. Especially sort of where my great grandfather came from. So he was down in Kent, so he used to use applewood sometimes. But it's a
lot of hornbeam down there as well.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So, but it's hard to find good replacements. I mean, I've used Robinia as well. So I think it's in the States, is it black gum? Some of them call it, and then you go across to Australia and you sort of get in iron bark, things like some of these sort of eucalypts. I mean, they're phenomenally tough, and the interlocking grain in them is just phenomenal. But the problem is you've got with some of the woods, you've got a very finite window opportunity to work on them, because after a few years, it's just like it's like working reinforced steel, hardened steel, because it's just so hard. And hence why they're called ironwood and iron bark, things like that. I mean, I've experimented with a lot of woods over the years, but it is hard to then find something that not only is it good for the wheels, but it's actually viable to get hold of the stuff. So I mean, you can't really get jarrah anymore. Jarrah isn't bad at all for naves. Makes good naves. But again, it's just not something you see imported in any quantity. And I'm certainly not a big enough entity to bring a shipment of that sort of thing over. So, I mean, utility's sometimes okay. So if you go through, a big pack of utility and you find the really good dark heartwood stuff, that's pretty good usually. It's got that interlaced grain again. It's very dense. It takes the spokes very well. And I've never really had any problems when I've used that in the past. So I think the big one to replace, the biggest problem we're going to have is replacing ash, because there's nothing quite like ash. Even hickory isn't quite the same. Hickory is that sort of, it's almost more like a cross between ash and oak in my sort of opinion of the use of it. There's just not quite any wood out there that I've ever used or come across that will replace ash, and I'm a bit concerned about that in the future.
Because it has a bit of elasticity. Is that
the? Yeah, so that's it. Yeah. So I mean, we're looking for that spring.
Yeah.
So if you take a wheel, I can grab one out in a minute. I'll show you the bounce on one, because I think it impresses people how much the wheel will bounce and how much shock absorbency it's got. I think there's a lovely gentleman, as a writer, came to me years ago, Rob Penn. He wrote a book about an ash tree that he took a single ash tree down and he processed it into as many things as you could make out of an ash tree, even firewood and everything. Every bit of the tree was used for something. And he came to me and we were chatting in a doorway, and I picked a wheel up to this sort of height and I dropped it on the floor, and he sort of like cowered, thinking what's going to happen, and it just bounced straight back up and I caught it. And this is the design of the wheels are just so phenomenally, like it's the engineering behind it, over the years, thousands of years of development that's made this wheel that will rebound and it will take that shock. And a lot of that is down to the ash. It's just having that good ash in there.
Right.
And that's where I think we will start to struggle if we start to sort of run out of ash. I mean, we might never run out of it yet, but a lot of the dieback infected trees aren't usable. So it's how is that going to work moving forward? Are even the resistant trees going to have damage from the disease being in it? They might live, but they might still have the damage. So we'll see. There's a lot to figure out yet, and it's going to be a few years in the process. But
so, how does the wheel fasten to the axle?
So we've got many options, and we were saying about the hornbeam before. So hornbeam was always good for the wooden axles. So before we had iron axles, we had wooden axles, and so a lot of the stuff that you see going, like the early wagons, like the Conestoga wagons going across America, things like that, they were wooden axled. So they would have a tapered axle, and the axle is always tapered down, and there's a tapered bore in the wheel, and it puts the wheel on the upright spoke. So if you imagine now you've got the dished wheel, instead of it being dished so that the bottom spokes are leaning out, it's always pointed so the spokes are upwards. And so, again, it's a very simple but clever bit of engineering, because always that wheel will want to push up the axle. So it's not trying to pull down the axle and come off. It's always trying to push up to that shoulder on the axle. So you have a shoulder turned onto the axle or carved onto the axle, and it always moves up that cone. As it whirs, it always whirs evenly up that cone, so it always stays a good fit. So it's not flopping about in theory. And then it would simply just have an axle pin at the end. So you would see, I've got nearby. I'm just going to grab a wheel off the back here.
A certain element of joy being left alone in a wheelwright shop.
Wondering about that collection of saws on the back wall there,
This is like one of the photographic studies we do.
So this one is quite an old-fashioned style, but you can see the pin slot. So you can put the pin through, and then the axle sits in the reset. This one could be a good one.
Wow. Looks like that's amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, it'll bounce up if you drop it from this sort of height. It'll jump a lot higher. But my little lad's bedroom is actually just above this bit of workshop here. I live upstairs, which is just, I mean, it's a bit of a dream for a lot of people to live above the workshop or at the workshop. So, but yeah, so that's for the wooden axles, and a lot of the metal axles would just have a collet and a pin. A lot of the later ones have cast iron axle box. So I don't know if you can see that quite easily there. So this tapers down towards this direction. It's the face of the wheel, the front of the wheel. And this shoulder then sits against the shoulder on the inside of the nave. You see the shoulder here.
Right.
So the axle box is pressed in from the back. It stops on the taper on the inside of the face. And in the back, you then wedge. So what you do, you put little cuts with a chisel around here, and then you close the wood over the axle box, so the axle box can't pull back out. And this method works really well for a lot of vehicles. But you see, sort of in the late 1800s, you see a lot of problems with like the mail coaches, where the wheel would actually come off the axle box because they were doing so many miles and at speed, and they were getting hotter. Then they developed something called a mail axle, which was for the mail coaches. And it was more about, they said it was about public safety, but a lot of it was because a lot of the valuable goods were getting damaged as these mail coaches were tipping over and smashing apart. They weren't too bothered about the people on board, really. So I've heard anyway. I wasn't around in the period. But with a mail axle, they have bolts that go, so they have 3 bolts normally, which go through the whole of the nave from the back, from the front, so they come through the back, and then you have a captive washer on the axle. They bolt through the captive washer, so they physically can't pull off, and that just runs on the shoulder on the axle. And they're quite a safe way of keeping the whole wheel on. I mean, you often see on the way to Appleby horse fair, which is I do a lot of work for Appleby. The gypsy community are brilliant. I've worked with them for many years, and they've always been a great support when we've had problems in our life. But you often see some of the vehicles you see going to Appleby, you think, well, I wouldn't really want to be riding on that. And you often see one at the side of the road, the wheel missing, and they've gone along and the wheels come off. And it's because one of the problems that a lot of people do, they'll put a set of wheels, they'll get a set of wheels from Poland or something because they're cheap. They'll bring them over here and then they'll wedge their own axle boxes in them. They'll chop them out with a chisel or a screwdriver in some cases, and they'll wedge the axle box in. But what they do, instead of putting the wedges in the wood and pushing the wood over the back of the axle box, they put them down the side of the axle box, between the wood and the axle box. And then what happens, they go down the road and it just pulls out the back and takes all the wedges with it. And I see this, and I know straight away what the problem's been. Is the wheels came off. It's a brand new wheel. I don't know what's gone wrong. I went, did you put the wedges in the wood or did you put them between the wood and the metal? And then you get a bit of silence for a minute and they go, I'll bring them up to you. That's usually when I end up wedging them properly for them. But you do see that quite a bit. And I usually straight away, you know what the problem is. But you wouldn't get quite the same problem with the male axles, which are the ones that bolt through everything. I mean, there's all different types of axles, but they're all very similarly based around that same design. So hope that covers the axle side of it.
Are there standard dimensions for most wheels, or is it? Are you doing the math for every job, so to speak?
Yeah, I think I've been self-employed for 20 odd years, and I don't think I've ever had two wheels come in that are the same. In fact, it's not even often that you get two wheels that are supposed to be the same coming in being the same. You know, they've been
oh man, oh god.
I mean, there's an old friend of mine. He used to live up in the lakes, and he lived in a gypsy caravan. And he came to me one day. He said, "Oh, Phil, could you repair these two wheels for me? It's a pair of wheels I want repairing." I'm like, "Yeah, I can, but they're not a pair." And he's like, "Oh, yes, they are. Yes, they are." And I'm like, "Well, that one's got 14 spokes, and that one's got 12, and that one's 3 inches taller than the other one." And he went, "Oh, well, they're both off the front of the wagon." And he said, "So what's happened at one point? Someone
was he turning to the left all the time?"
Yeah. I mean, at least they're not driven wheels, so it doesn't really make a lot of difference to it. But and I can't imagine that it. Anyway,
does his horse have one leg longer than the other?
Yeah. It's for going round hills one way, you see, isn't it? But yeah, he did make me chuckle with that one. It's still like I keep coming back to that story because he's sadly passed away now. But it was the puzzlement on his eyes when he looked and he went, "How did you know that so quickly?" Because you can see when you work with wheels, there's you can tell a 12-spoke from a 14-spoke because a 12-spoke wheel, they make a cross. So you've always got like 4 wheels that are across from each other. But with a 14-spoke wheel, it throws them off. So you never have 4 in that cross section, if that makes sense. So just at a glance, you can go, that's a 12-spoke or that's a 14-spoke. And it was like literally as soon as he got them out of the van, I was like, "Oh yeah, that one's 14, that's a 12. But, yeah. Luckily, I had to because they have Warner naves, which are an American design, and American designs are okay for most stuff, but Warners were a mass production item, and they work really well if you've got a factory mass producing all these things. But they're really, really difficult then to make a repair or to repair or rebuild them because they've got a cast iron socket, which all the spokes go into, and the nave is pressed into the middle of that. And it has a set of mortises inside the nave as well, the wooden nave. So you've got a double tenon going into these. So you've got to fit all of that individually to get the wheel to run through. Horrible things. But unfortunately, these wheels that you brought to me off the gypsy wagon, they were Warner wheels, which means that one of the metal bands had 14 mortises and one had 12. I managed to find a matching Warner band, which was just absolute stroke of luck that there was one in the old shed at the back of the yard. So I made him an actual matching pair. So it does have a matching pair on that caravan now, wherever it's ended up. But I felt a bit bad in some ways, so it's taken a bit of its story away from it, but I'll always remember that.
What's on the back of the car?
I honestly don't
wheel
know.
and a pram wheel?
I did say to him, I said, "You've not actually got like a back wheel on the front by mistake." Oh, no, definitely not. But I never know. There might be a 12 or a 14 on the back as well.
Yeah.
And how about tools, Phil? What's
tools?
What's the?
I mean, specialised for wheelwriting. I mean, we're talking about. I haven't actually got a compass plane out of the chest, which is buried. I would have dug that out, but So we're using like compass planes as a bit of a specialist tool for us doing the curves. Not that we use them as often nowadays. Spoke shaves. So the amount of people that I meet when I'm doing my talks and demos, and they'll smile and they'll watch me using a spoke shave, and then they'll come up to me afterwards and they go, "No, I've been doing woodwork for 60 years, and I never knew why it was called a spoke shave." And here we are using spokes. So, but you know, a lot of what we do is the draw knife spoke shave. We've got favorite spoke shave, my metal one. I usually use a wooden one if I'm using it for fun, but if I'm doing any serious work, I use the metal ones just because it's easier to get the irons for them, because I do tend to go through them. I mean, if you do a batch of, say if I'm doing 4 wheels, I'm doing 50 spokes. I'd always allow for a couple of spares if they're 12 spokes. Draw knife, spoke shave for doing most of the shaping. We also have corner chisel called the bruz, which I was going to get one out and I forgot. So your bruz is for cutting the corners of the mortises, especially on the plug spokes, because they don't have a shouldered tenon on them. They're just a tapered fit. So you pare down them tapered edges. It's quite easy with a bruz. It's a bit easier to get that without sort of wandering off, because if you do it with a flat chisel, you're always sort of going to start doing this with the corner if you're not careful, especially as an apprentice. I mean, you get better at not doing it the older you get, in theory. So we use for measuring. We have travelers. So we use this for measuring the outside circumference of the wheel. If I can get that just right in the light there, can you see the details on that one?
Oh yeah.
So I mean, this is one of my favorites. Get that there. It even says at the bottom, Paris, Cape Town, and Penang. But this was a company that you would send them your measurements. They would send you these out, and you would use this to make the measurements, and they would make the metal work for you. So we use this basically. We run down the outside circumference of the wood, and then you run around the inside of the metal when you've rolled it, and you mark on the length of the outside of the wood, and then you minus the amount of metal that you want to cut out for the nip, as we call it. Like I say, an average wheel, like the one I've just bounced there, that's got about 3/4 of an inch of nip. So if you think on the diameter of the wheel, that's about 1/4 of an inch of compression. It's quite a bit to force it over, so they expand quite a bit. This is a blacksmith made one, so this one was my great granddad. So if you look closely enough, you can see the fire welds just here. So it's had a few years of use. We got
So Dave, sorry, before you move on, sorry. So is what the circumference of those to a standardized unit, or is it just like 1 turn, 2 turns?
Yeah,
it's not equivalent to inches or anything.
No, so the blacksmith ones generally they're all different sizes roughly. You would put a chalk mark. So you have a notch. Just about to see the notch, which is the light's not brilliant on that.
Yeah.
So that's the start point there, that notch, and then you put a chalk mark where your stop is. So you go around so many times from your mark, and then when you get to the end, you'll put your chalk mark, and then you can just put that back around the actual inside of the metal. This one's got imperial markings on it.
Right.
But your problem is now this is probably slightly worn, so you wouldn't trust that compared to another one. So you'd always do the same measurement. So you'd use this to measure both, and then you know it's right. You can't go wrong then. But that's getting a bit worn now, but it's my favourite. And it always gets people as well because you've got to try and keep it in a line so you're not wandering up and down as you go around the outside of the belly. And you always check 3 times to make sure you've got the same measurement 3 times. And the amount of people that come and have a go, usually when we're trying to film for a TV program, we do quite a bit of TV stuff. And the amount of times that the presenter will have a go thinking, oh, that looks easy, I'll do that on camera. And they give up because they just can't get the same measurement twice. And it's just because they wander up and down with it all the way around. But Yeah, it's quite a nice showing off point of being able to measure it accurately every time.
When you say about the nip being 3/4 of an inch on that particular wheel, how many sections are the fellies in?
So that's 12 spokes, so it's got 6 fellies.
So it's 2 spokes. That's the standard thing, is 2 spokes per.
It's pretty standard, 2 spokes to felly. Sometimes when you get like bigger wheels that have been cut down, so say it's a 16 spoke wheel and it's been cut down to make a smaller wheel for a job, sometimes you'll put 3 spokes to a felly and then just a random 2, just so you've not got too many gaps to close on the fellies. You don't need that much compression nip on them. But generally, if they're not a steam bent rim, because we call them a rim if they're bent, but we call them a felly if they're cut out. So that gets a bit confusing for people sometimes when you've got rims, fellies, tires. It's just all these names interlace a bit. But yeah, so it's usually two spokes to a felly. It's nice and simple. And the problem is to see when you get like steam bent rims, when you're trying to get all the spokes into them. Because as you imagine, if you look at the radiating spoke, so this point here is narrower than this point here at the outside of the spoke. So what you've got to do to get them in, you've got to pull them in to get them into the felly, which is all right if you've only got to get 2 spokes into one felly. But when you've got a steam bent rim and you've got to get all them spokes into a rim, it becomes a bit more of a challenge, especially trying to do it without breaking the spokes, because you can only force that tenon so far sideways before you start snapping spokes. But to bend the spokes in, we use what's called a spoke dog, and this hooks onto one of the spokes. This goes behind the other, and you can push it with your shoulder while you put the felly on, and it just frees your hands up. It gives you a bit more strength, especially with some of the bigger wheels that we do, because the bigger cross sections, you've got to really force to bend them spokes. And this is where part of the shaping comes in for the spoke as well. Ever sort of studied a wheel up close, probably fine. This is off a 1910 living wagon, but if you look here, you see this bit narrows, and then we call that the waist, as in this waist, not as in throwing away waste. You've also got the this section, which is like a teardrop section, with no ovoid. But the idea of this is so that it'll flex a little bit there when you're trying to put the fellies on. If that was the full thickness right through, it's gonna put all the pressure against the tenon, which is not ideal. We do get some chunkier ones, but they still have the waist on them, which is sort of narrowing here. But that's just so you can bend them in enough to have the felly onto them, and then to knock it down. You've got to try and do that without breaking, which the tangs are the round tenons on the ends. I've had so many of them break on me, especially in my early days, when you just reach for the hammer to tap it on, and you let a bit of pressure off the spoke dog, and it just goes and it snaps the tang off. So then you've got to take the spoke out, put another spoke back in, and then carry on from there. It's a little bit frustrating. It's but you kind of learn your way.
Are you generally cutting your? Are you generally cutting your fellies? Cutting your fellies rather than steaming these days, or?
Yes, so most British and European wheels are cut out, and in fact a lot of American ones are as well. It was only these sort of more industrialized production ones that went onto steam bent, and you see a lot sort of in Australia as well that went onto that. A few reasons. I mean, one was repairability. It's a lot easier to repair the ones that are just fellies, not rims. In order to, I mean, I've had nightmares in the past when I've thought, well, I'll just cut the steam bent rim. It's only got one bit of damage in it, so I'll cut that and I'll put just a section of felly in. But then you cut it and then the ends come like that, and then it's trying to get all that to then line back up. It's doable, but a lot of the wheels that had steam bent rims were like the Warner wheels that I talked about earlier, with the cast iron socket band that goes round, and they were disposable. So the wheel was made to be thrown away because they mass produced them so cheap that they were there to be thrown away and just put another one on. And in the 80s, 90s, you get this this argument coming through that we need to sort of stop these cheap Warner wheels coming over because they're ruining the business because we don't have any repair work to do. I can kind of see the sentiment behind it. It was pushing a lot of producers and people repairing wheels out in the period. And they're an all right wheel, but they're not as strong as a light English pattern, which is the most common pattern at the time.
How many Master Wheelwrights are there in the UK?
Qualified Master Wheelwrights in the UK at the moment, I think we're down to about 6 or 7.
Yeah.
We've got there's probably I mean that to be fair, that doesn't mean a lot. I mean, some of the qualified wheelwrights, I know unqualified wheelwrights that I can probably say that their work is a lot better.
Okay.
I think it just depends on a few different factors. In fact, some of the best wheels I've ever seen have been made by hobbyists. There'll be someone that's had a go at making a wheel and they've listened to the advice, or they've got in touch with Wheelwright and they've given advice on what to do. And they've made a beautiful wheel. But that's generally because they've taken so much time over doing it. Yeah. Everything's been absolutely perfect. Down to like even the piece of wood they've used, and they've thrown every bit away and just picked the absolute best of the best, which is what we aim to do as best we can. But yeah, I've been very impressed with some hobbyist work over the years.
Okay. Right.
So I can't really turn around and say that hobbyists are ruining the trade. They do good work.
They're not out producing you, certainly.
No, this is it. I mean, you're talking people that they'll probably make themselves a set of 4 wheels and think, I'm never going to do that again because the amount of work that goes in.
Yeah.
So you're in terms of your own work, excluding like exceptions where really specialist thing and because you have a reputation, you get called in. Your general work. How big a spread across the country? How far are they generally coming to see you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing work I do quite a bit from Scotland because there's no sort of full-time wheelwrights in Scotland anymore. I think about 2 years ago, the last person up there died. I think there's 1 or 2 people doing bits of repairs, but they don't really tackle big jobs. But I've got work from all over the UK. I try and avoid stuff from the South Coast if I can, because there's a few wheelwrights down there, and we all know each other. We try not to get on each other's feet too much. And 1 or 2 of the wheelwrights down there are very, very good. I quite happily recommend them. But I think it's like any game, isn't there? There's good ones and there's bad ones. But yeah, I mean, I've had an order come in today from Bath. I've got work from down in London. I've got work from East Coast. I do a lot for museums and trusts and things like that. So I do a bit for Beamish. And I do like Beamish. I like being up there. If no one's ever visited, you've got to visit the place because it's a hive. It's brilliant for people like us. There's a lot of craft stuff going on there as well, which is nice if you've got the right time. But for me, I love getting in period. So working in period with places like Beamish, I'll turn up and I'll do work for their vehicles in the museum, in the period costume, and with the period tools to a degree. And I love that opportunity. I mean, in the States, I went and spent some time in Williamsburg as one of my visits for my Churchill Fellowship, and I could have stayed there forever. I honestly, I mean, when I was offered a job there, I kind of went, I could do this actually, yeah. And if it wasn't for family commitments back home, I think I would have stuck it. But yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity when you get to be able to do what I do in that setting. If I don't know if anyone else has ever found that similar thing in life. It just fits you well. But yeah, the work, generally, I've got work from all over. I've had work from Ireland as well. I've done bits for the continent. Yeah, it's surprising where the work comes from. And it's always word of mouth. Or sometimes it's through meeting people at shows, but that's quite rare. I think most of the things I get from shows is I get more talks to do and I get lots of TV work off the shows, which is not to be sniffed at. It all helps.
Interesting. Yeah.
Phill, have you ever visited Chedham's Yard?
Visited where? Sorry,
Chedham's Yard.
I haven't. No.
It's in Warwickshire. Again, that was a TV thing. They won a TV program, restoration program once, and they got a grant to do a lot of work on it. But it's an untouched wheelwrights workshop.
Right. Yeah. I think I've heard about it before. I've never been.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. I think you probably basically the guy walked away from it in 1966, and it's exactly as it was left, and nothing has been touched. And it had been there for a good 150 odd years, I would imagine.
Yeah, it'd be worth a visit.
I think it's very important because as far as I'm aware, it's possibly the only true woodworking workshop that I know of that is as it exactly was when it was left for the last time. It's not been sort of, I don't know, glamorized or anything. It literally was. They left everything where it is, and it still is exactly as it was left. But I'm worried about its future because the people who run it are all volunteers, and they really struggle for funding. But I think it's incredibly important, personally.
Yeah, I mean, for one, it's such a rarity, like you say, to have something like that, isn't it, intact from the period.
Yeah.
I mean, I've worked in plenty of places that got a wheelwright shop, but the problem is, it is like you say, it's glamorized, isn't it? It's just put together like, oh, we've got these pictures and we've made it a bit like that. And I would walk in a lot of these places. I do walk in a lot of places, and I have that critical eye, and I go, that doesn't really, that's not a wheelwrighting thing. That wouldn't be in a wheelwright shop. Or you know, to have that actual sort of snapshot. I mean, I love going in old wheelwright shops and seeing things going, I know what that's for. And it'll be just a little dig that they've made up to make something work. And you think, I like how they've done that, you know, and it's that little bit of an insight.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the problem for me, I mean, like I say, I'm fourth generation. So it goes back to my great grandfather. Now, he learnt in the Victorian era, and he was from down in Kent. He worked near Chatham in Kent. And he was he worked in the boatyards, and he worked in a brickyard as well, making brick in a company that made bricks. And they used to have barges on the Medway and all sorts. And so he brought them skills forward, and he went then from that, he went to the First World War. So he ended up in the trenches. He went through the Battle of Mons, things like that. And I've got photographs of him in the forward workshops making wheels. So he was a wheeler for the army. So he brought all that knowledge, and he brought that along, and he passed it on to my grandfather, who then passed it on to my father and myself and my mother as well for a time. My mum was a wheelwright for a bit because it was the maternal side of the family. But the problem is, you could sit there and you could go, well, look at all this skill, all this knowledge that I've been passed on. You know, I don't need to listen to other people, but I think there's something really fantastic that you can still go out and you can learn so much still. You know, I traveled America, and I've traveled all over the world. Recently went to Japan, and it's just, there's so much knowledge out there, and there's so many little clever ways that people do things as well, you know. And it could be, I mean, my granddad always used to say to me, he says, you know, you should take everyone's advice. It doesn't mean you have to use it, but you know, you can get an absolute idiot could walk into the workshop and you'd think nothing of the knowledge that they bring with them, but they could turn to you and they could give you a really good piece of advice that's worth using. And so I always try and work with that. So traveling the States, I went to America, Canada, doing research. I've been all over Europe doing research as best I can. But there's not many wheelwrights left in Europe, sadly. It's nice to see how well it is supported in the USA, though, because I found more wheelwrights than I thought I was going to find. Put it that way, when I went out there.
I think it's more appreciated over there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think crafting's on a big scale over there. No, I think it's getting to be more appreciated here as well. You know, if we look at sort of the work of places like the Heritage Craft Association, people like that, it's all a good help. And these little societies like your own as well. It's keeping these skills alive. Because I can make wheels in my shed all day long, and I'll keep that skill going for me. But the problem is, unless you talk about what you're doing, unless you pass on the knowledge, unless you record it, doing the TV and the media stuff, I feel that it's going to die away without all that. So, but I do feel that we're in a good position now. I think we've signed this, the government signed the UNESCO Treaty on Intangible Cultural Heritage, which is a bit of a mouthful if you've had a beer or two. And their idea is that the idea of this intangible cultural heritage scheme is that it enables the government to then protect crafts and skills and sort of knowledge that's passed down through generations, things like that. And I'm hoping that when this starts to come into operation a bit more over the coming years, I'm hoping that will start to defend crafts and make it a safe place for craft. And I do hope as well it'll bring funding, because the problem is that we've got over here is that to make money from the job, but then to keep the skills alive is so difficult. I mean, I'm impressed because my former apprentice Joe, and I talk about the lad a lot because he's a diamond, he's a good lad. He's impressed me from day one. He rang me up. I wasn't even at the workshop. He'd seen an article in the newspaper that I'd done about, maybe I'd be taking an apprentice on. And by 8 o'clock in the morning, he was on the phone and he was like, "Can I come for an interview?" And it went well right from there. And he's gone on and he's set his own workshop up. And he's done so well to set that workshop up. But I think most people would fall at that hurdle. To actually go out and to set up a workshop that's got everything you need to make wheels and to make a living. I mean, he does a lot of joinery work as well, because his main thing is the joinery. But he does a lot of bespoke things. He makes a lot of windows, sliding sash windows, things like that. Talented lad. But like I say, where do you start to build a workshop? I've landed so lucky because probably 90% of what I've got here is what I've inherited or people donated to me. But how do you go out setting a modern workshop up now? So if someone wants to come into the craft, they're going to need funding, and it's not just for the training. I mean, the training funding is a minute part of what they need. They need that support. They need the financial support to get the buildings going, the workshops, get the machines, the stock. I mean, I probably have easily tens of thousands, if not nearly £100,000 worth of wood stacked in the yard. It's you need that. And I've just landed very lucky to be in this position where I've got all this. And although we set this workshop up here, this actual workshop's only about 21, 22 years old now. The old workshops originally have all been built on now, sadly. It's all houses. One of the old workshops, which I can remember as a child, it was actually a wine cellar at the local estate. So we had the estate workshop, and then that's now a wine cellar. Which we joked about that because it shows how cold the workshop used to be when they decided to make it into a wine cellar.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing you've just said, that your original workshop is now gone. There's so few left now. It's scary. Just one other thing. Do you happen to know how high your bench is, if that's your original grandfather's bench?
I've never measured it, to be honest. But I'm guessing it was a similar build to me, because a similar height, because it just always seems to work for me.
The ones at Chedham's Yard seem very, very low. That's all.
I got the real one. So it's funny enough, I've seen a lot of Wheelwrights benches I've seen are quite low. And
that's what I wondered, whether it was peculiar to the trade. Yeah.
950.
31 and a half inches.
31 and a half.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's higher than the ones at Chedham's Yard, actually. Yeah.
So if you see, because the problem, I mean, my back is ruined from this job. Can you imagine when we lift a wheel onto a stand and things like that? It's a lot of weight, and it's awkward weight, because once you lift it after a certain point, you tip it flat.
Yeah.
You're throwing all your weight forward. So, so a lot of the stands that we use are quite low down, which then means you're a bit stooped down when you're working on things, but at least you're not lifting the weight high up.
Yeah.
And we use wheel stools as well, which are quite low, and you would tip the wheel onto that, so you're not have to actually physically lift the wheel.
Have they got a particular name?
I mean, we call them a wheel stool.
Yeah.
It's a bit messy in the workshop. I've not done the thing where I've hide all the rubbish off shop, but you can see some of the wheels here we're working on. And this stand here is quite a bit lower. It's a bit nicer to work on. But then we have
You slow down.
I mean,
This is all the fascinating detail we like.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't be embarrassed. We like it.
No, it's so it's a working workshop. I always say that to people. Don't know. It's not a museum. It's a workshop. And we've got we have all my tools usually wrapped up quite nicely at the back, but it's covered in dust at the moment. But that's one of the problems with workshops is dust, just dust everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
Even with my extractors on, I've got a scrubber as well, an air scrubber, but you just can't get away from dust. I actually swept the floor last month, so it's you're on it really.
Don't think like my workshop. That's about once every 3 years.
That moves around a bit anyway.
I see it, but yeah, there's barely a shaving on the floor this week. It's nice and tidy. But when we're hooping the wheels, I usually have a good tidy up and get all the sawdust and shavings out. Use that to get the fire going. So that's usually when I've done a batch. Is usually you can tell because I've tidied the workshop a bit.
Where do you set the fire? Is it outdoors? Just to be clear. Yeah, it is, right.
Yeah.
You're not working at hard.
There's a company that E.H. Baker and Sons. So they used to do a lot of stuff. They're in Liverpool, Sheridan Street, Liverpool. For some reason I always remember that.
Right.
And they used to do all the market carts for Liverpool, a massive organisation. And they had a workshop that was that big you could turn double-decker buses round in it. And we're talking 1950s double-decker buses, so they're a big turning circle. And they had a petrol pump in one end of it, so they could pull buses in and fuel buses up. But the other end, they had a big coke fire, which was going for days on end when they were hooping lots of wheel. And that was indoors. Probably not the most healthiest way of doing things, especially considering there's a petrol pump in there as well. Yeah. Now, sadly, I actually inherited quite a bit of stuff off them. They were lovely, the Baker family. And they passed the market cart work on to us, which we used to do when I was at school. We used to do about 200 market carts a year, and that was for the wholesale fruit markets. There was Maroose Bridge in Wigan, there was Liverpool Wholesale Fruit Market, and various other little markets about. But that's all gone now, really. I'm lucky if I see maybe one market cart a year on average.
Is that the flatbed hand carts you're talking about?
Yeah. So Costermonger barrows and that as well.
Yeah.
But the Liverpool, there was always a bit of rivalry between Manchester and Liverpool. So that the Liverpool ones, if they were lucky, they could get 3/4 of a ton on one, and they could still push it. And springs would turn upside down underneath. They would like squat down, and they had competitions loading them up and racing with them with potatoes on and all that. And it's sad that that's all gone. I can remember it from a child because I used to be allowed to go. So my headmistress used to let me have the day off school or the morning off school to go and deliver hand carts with the family. She thought it was important to keep that going. I once went to deliver a hand cart, and I must have only been about 7 or 8, I think. And they set me off with this brand new hand cart. And the way the markets were, there was like a ginnel down the middle where all the dealing was done. And they would go around, they would bid on stuff and they'd pay on them. But there was a drain down the middle, and the key was to keep out of the drain with the wheel, because if you went in that drain at my height and weight, it would just flip you away with the cart. And I quite remember quite well. And Scousers are great. I mean, they're always a comedian, Scousers. No matter where you go in the world, you find a Scouser and they'll tell you a good joke. But I'm going along with this cart, and there's like a chamfer underneath the headboard called the butterfly chamfer. And I have to look through that because I'm so short. I'm going along, and I got a wheel stuck in the gutter, and I was gone, crashed, and went straight into a big crate of Fife's bananas, a big pallet full of them, and knocked some of the boxes out the side of this, and bananas on the floor. And these Scouse lads go, "Oh, you're right, lad, come on," pick me up and dusted me off, pushed the hand cart back out into the road, give me a banana, and sent me on my way. And that for me is probably one of my most cherished memories of the market. But I'd say it's all gone now. It's all been flattened, and I mean, supermarkets do all their own, don't they? So there's no need for the markets anymore.
The market's out the back of the transit.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, they did because they said for a while a lot of the reason we did the hand carts still is because the health and safety didn't like the electric forklifts because they were too quiet, and they used to run a lot of people over, and that's when they started putting the beepers on the forklifts. They caused a lot of damage to the forklifts because a lot of the drivers would be too lazy to get out of the forklift and move a hand cart out of the way, so they'd just move with the forks, but they just run straight into them a lot of the time and smash them to bits. So we got quite a few to repair because of that.
Hmm.
Well, them were the days.
So Phill, could I so I'm Andy, who contacted you, by the way.
Yeah.
So could I just, when you were talking about doing the nave, and so you've bored it out, but that's not the final. That's your pre-bore for the seasoning. But
yeah, so when you season them, it's just a rough bore in the middle.
Yeah.
And it's usually, just like an inch bore or something, just to take the piff.
Right. Okay.
So we don't worry too much, and then that would it'd be rebored afterwards. So the jig had the indexing jig. Sorry, found my words. The indexing jig that I use, it's got an inch bar through the middle of that, so you have to have an inch bore for that anyway.
Right. Yeah.
Which has to be centralized.
Yeah.
Like I say, not all the ones I do. It's often enough now. I find it hard to find time to process them, so I just leave them in longer lengths and put them in on board. And then you like I say, you lose a bit of waste off the ends. It's not the end of the world because you still get a few good ones out in the middle of the length. Because that's obviously dried a lot slower, so it's not shaped a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, the joys of timber.
So I'm a tool collector basically. That's one of my big carpenter joined and betrayed, but I'm a tool collector for instance. And so I've got what I believe is a hub borer, nave borer. So it's a tapered tool. I mean, can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you in the corner, like I can expand you. There we go. Yeah.
So this is the one I've got.
Oh yeah. Hub reamer.
So what I do is very often I exhibit at steam rallies, vintage events, and agricultural events and that. So I'm explaining what I've got quite a lot, and this I'd like to know that I'm doing it right. So this is for doing the tapered bore to take the axle box.
Yes.
So this would be a cast iron axle box. Or
I'll find the axle box. Show you.
Bless you.
He does the same thing you do, Andy. He just turns around and picks up what he needs.
Yeah.
Actually, it's in the smithy. There's some so the tapered cart axles. They don't have a shoulder on.
I happen to have one here. If you want to.
Yeah, there you go. So you got the long taper. Has that got a shoulder on the back, or is it straight tapered right through? There we go. Yeah. So this style.
Yeah.
This
style is what that auger would be for, or that reamer.
Yes. Yeah. So they've got some of those in Chedham's Yard actually, and I displayed there earlier with Richard Arnold and a couple of others. We just did a display there, so I was fortunate to be able to actually put this on the ground and then get one of their boxes and put it inside it, and it just matches the tape.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, and the hook on the end, you would put the wheel or the nave.
Yes.
You'd often bore them out after they've been built.
Yes.
So you would have a rough bore in the middle to work on them, but then you would reamer them out afterwards to fit the box, and you would put it face down on a wheel stool, which a lot of the time was just an old cask. You cut an old cask off, and that would sit the wheel on it. And then you would put the reamer through, and you would hang a weight off the hook on the bottom.
Right.
So the weight would draw it down. So that's got the hook on it. That one. A lot of them they snap the hooks off in the end over years, but if you see them with a hook on the end, they would hang a decent weight on the bottom, like a 56. And then you wind them through.
See, Andy, that settles this.
Yes. I mean, there's so when I'm explaining these things to people, I like to be as right as possible because I don't want to be like giving people the false narrative. At the end of the day, I like to give it like it is. But there's also different conjecture about this. For catching the shavings, which I don't believe at all. But the one I love is the actual exactly what you said, and that's how I normally describe it. If you've got if you've got a 6 foot wheel, let's say, you've got to have a long bar across the top and two blokes walking around the outside, and this would just weight down and pull its own way through.
You've no way of pushing it down when you're like when it's out here.
No.
You know, how are you going to physically push weight down on it? So that's why it's on the bottom. Not bad with a smaller wheel, but a lot of the big stuff, you've no chance.
What I've seen, though, also besides using a weight on them, is they put a sling of rope, and the rope twisted and pulled it down.
Yes, the rope pulls it down. Yeah. I mean, that's quite possible because a lot of I've not got in here, but there's a lot of wheelwright shops if they had a good concrete floor, which if you were lucky enough to have a concrete floor, they would have a bar across in a channel at the bottom, and you would be able to clamp your wheels down. The hook would hook under and have like a threaded clamp, which would clamp your wheels down over your wheel stool. And you could use that then to probably tie your anchor ropes onto, so it would probably work quite well. I mean, your thing is that you're only going at because it's such a large cutting surface, you're only going at a very, very fine shaving if you can all the way around anyway. And like you say, you would have two blokes a lot of the time swinging on them. I mean, I've got quite a rare tool actually right next to us here, which I didn't even think to show you guys, but we've got a boxing engine. So a boxing engine will do, it's almost like what an engineering lathe would do for your boring. And this superseded the reamers. And the idea was that, I mean, the one I've got here has got, it's adjustable, so you can actually do a tapered bore with it. Really clever bit of engineering. It's typical Victorians. It's just that here covered in dust because I only use it on the very big stuff. So, where's that?
So, to my shame, I was offered one of these donkeys years ago and never took it.
Yeah. So this is the. Let's move the camera back a bit. So this is a boxing engine.
Yeah.
With the thread, but you can alter this part here. You can move it over so it does the angled bore, or tapered bore, and it's got a 3-jaw chuck at the top for grabbing onto. So it's a bit like an engineering lathe in that sort of respect. So you can use it for boring that way. And then it just you can have different types of cutters. So like a hook cutter is great for sort of wolfing it out like a gouge. Now this one sat in the workshop. My granddad made me laugh with it because I used one when I was at college that belonged to Robert Herford, and it worked quite well. And my granddad always used to complain, "Oh no, you don't want to use one of them. They're terrible tool. We don't use them." He usually used to cut a lot of them out by hand. And this sat in the workshop just gathering dust and rust for probably about 60 years. And then I dug it out for some big cannon wheels that we did. And my granddad's going, "Oh, you don't want to mess with that. You don't want to mess with that." And I started cutting with it, and it made, and when you get that lovely sort of crisp sound as it cuts the shaving, and it's a nice brand new razor sharp cutter that I made in the forge. And my granddad's watching, he goes, "Is that all right? That's it doing the job?" I'm like, yeah. And then he come up and he was he was probably 89 at the time, and he comes over and he starts sort of winding the handle on it, and he goes, "Oh, it's all right, that, isn't it?" And I'm like, "How many years have you had that, Granddad?" He said, "Oh, about 60." And he'd never used it. He was dead against it. And then after that, he was like, he wouldn't stop. I'm like, "Are you going to stop anytime soon?" He's like, "Well, does it want boring?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, I'll do it." And he did these cannon wheels, and he was 89 at the time. He bought these cannon wheels out for me. He had a great time with him. And luckily, I took some video of him doing that as well, because it was one of the last things he did in the workshop before he passed away. And I'm trying not to chuckle in it because he wouldn't put it down. He was just like, "Oh, this is great, this." And no one had this for 60 years, never used it. But yeah, they're a great bit of kit of them boxing engines. Very, very rare as well, sadly.
Just one more thing on this here. We've got the holes through it. So I explained that as a way of clamping a wooden stop on it, so that you can bore down and create four equal bores to match the four wheels to the four axle boxes, etc.
Yeah. So it'll help it keep one of the problems you get sometimes with them is I don't use them so often. They're more for an older sort of style of boxing. what you would get as well is that they would jatter in that hole, you know, when they're trying to find the place, and just having a block of wood in there sometimes just stops them from trying to push away from the cutting edge too much.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain. It's almost like it's like trying to use a force in a bit without the point in something.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. It'll want to do that sort of dance about. But if you've got that block of wood in the center that just sort of stops it from dancing as it goes down, and like you said, use as a stop.
So what you've just said there, so I'm always researching things and looking for things, and I can't remember whether somebody told me or I picked it up off on a website, but somebody has actually got a photograph of one of these with actually another piece that hooks on that. Now, this is the bit I can't understand because it comes up the back. Well, that negates the fact that it's ever going to cut anything. But if it went up the front, it could almost do what you've just said, where it limits the cut but keeps it just enough cut to actually make it work without juddering. But no, okay. But
Phill, if I get you right, the block the block of wood mounted in the middle of this would be tapered too, or would it just be a block of wood?
Yeah. The problem you get is that as you go down, it'll want to bind, so it'll start to increase the bite on what you're cutting. But it just gives you that a bit of a guide. You know, it's just to stop it dancing about in the, because it's like trying to wind a force. I'm looking at a bit next to me here, but it's like trying to put a force a bit through something without that center to keep it from dancing about. So as that big blade surface is trying to cut, it's going to be sort of biting in, jumping out, biting in. They're horrible to use. And it's something that, I mean, you would have seen them use probably more with doing like the wooden axles and things like that as well, so that you've got a nice clean taper on the inside. Because for axle boxes, it wasn't that fussy, to be honest. You know, once that act in the bore, it doesn't matter if the bore's messy as long as it's a tight fit. But when you're running on a wooden axle, you want a nice, perfect surface on the inside if you can get that. So they would probably be more commonly used for the wooden axles. And this is why you see like the earlier axle boxes didn't have a shoulder on the back, because they were just fitted straight into an existing wheel that had already been bored out for a. You start seeing like box halvings. So instead of like the solid cast iron axle boxes, you see early box halvings, which are just two pieces of cast iron that go in either end. And they were fitted. They were usually retrofitted. I had some very early ones here recently, which were they were Coalbrookdale ones, and they still had Coalbrookdale. You could see the Coalbrookdale still printed in the back. And basically, what they'd done, they'd fitted them in to an old, worn-out wheel nave or hub that had been running on a wooden axle, and then the wooden axle itself was then clamped with steel or iron plates to wear on them. And this was sort of like an advance, slowly advanced up towards metal axles. So first they were all wood, and then they went to some metal, and then they went to all metal. But like you see, like them taper reamers, they would be more important for the old wooden axles, just because it would give you that better surface on the inside. So you've got a nice flat continuous surface that's working on the wood instead of something that's all rough and chomped up. So
good. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
What would the wooden axles? What wood would they have used for the actual axles?
You see a lot of different woods, to be honest. I mean, you go back to the Ljubljana wheel, and it was an oak axle, if I remember right. But then you come forward and you see ash used quite a bit. You see ash used for a lot of axle beds in the later ones, because it was a slightly flexible, and you could mount the metal axle into that. But then you also see a lot of hornbeam as well in places. So when you're working wood on wood, I don't know if have you ever seen something that's been woodworking on wood, and you get that sort of amazing polished sheen on it that it's almost greasy. It's like the lignin in the wood, just beautiful sort of greasy coat to it. You don't even need to put any oil on it to a degree. And this is what you sort of see with the axle arms, as we call them, the axle ends. They get that polish, and you get that really well with hornbeam and beech. You see that a lot.
Almost burnished.
Yes, it's like a burnishing effect, but it goes almost like waxy. It's quite fantastic. It's like a bit strange, really, that it's such an interest point for me. But it's how that surface of the wood changes, and it becomes so hard as well. It's like if you've ever, I mean, I have hollow cutters for the tenon cutters, and if the cutter blades get knocked back, which sometimes happens on cutting the end grain, when we cut the round tenons on the spokes, and if you got like the cast iron surface binds on the wood for a moment, it sort of burnishes it. And then when you reset your cutters, it really struggles to cut that first cut, because that burnishing is almost like it's hardened the wood. It's quite bizarre how it changes it. And you see this with the axle arms, well, the wooden axle arms. You see that that surface is like iron, and it's polished it in really quite. I don't know. There's something really clever about wood, isn't there? But you do see that with them, and that's why I think that the hornbeam was quite good for that. In that it must be either the way the lignin works, plus it's hardwood anyway. Very dense if you ever work with it. So I've seen quite a few hornbeam ones, but again, woodworm love hornbeam, don't they? So they don't seem to survive the woodworm.
I've never seen any of my hornbeam eaten by woodworm deeper than just below the bark, even if you leave the bark on, because it's so dense. So you must have quite some aggressive woodworms over there.
Yeah, although I found woodworm in some of the oak in the workshop the other day, which I was quite impressed that they'd actually gone into that. Of all the wood that I've got in the workshop, why have they eaten the oak? I'm going to say the French ones. They're quite savage. The French woodworm that turn up.
Just out of interest, I actually looked up that oldest fuel. I can share it so the others in group can see it.
Yeah, the Ljubljana wheel.
Is that it?
It's loading. No, that's not the one. No, it's similar though. It's a similar reconstruction, I'm guessing, that one. So you've got these. If you look across, you can see the cross rails, and they're dovetailed in. So I think that's
these are dovetailed in across here.
Yeah, but they're tapered from one end to the other as well, so that there's the driven in, and they're opposing. So you've got like one will be coming from one side, next one will come from the opposite side. Really, really clever design. In something that you'd think would be such a simple piece of kit, but when it comes to actually making one, without your iron nails and that as well, because we're talking Bronze Age, it's quite interesting, really. But when you look at the original that I went to look at, it's in a big display case, and you can actually get quite a good view of the joinery aspects of it. You can see all the cuts and that, it's so neat. And you think, wow, copper tools over 5,000 years ago, really impressive.
Are those lashing holes there?
Yeah, so they're for bindings. Yeah, so they put woody bindings through them. But again, this design, it was fixed on the axle, so that the axle turned underneath the body of the cart. Which you see that still, say up to modern day, but up until when people were still using oxen carts quite regularly. So early 1900s, you still see this design aspect on a lot of their carts then. So the oxen carts, they didn't bother about having differential. And the thing is that you don't need to worry then about buttressing the nave or the hub. So you don't need that buttressing effect on the axle the same, because it's fixed to the axle. So they're a bit more basic.
Yeah, I just thought I'd bring that up. So because you were talking about it a couple of times, it's not the right one. I think the other one's actually part of it missing.
I think it's a reproduction of it, that by the looks of it. Yeah, it's quite a tidy reproduction from that picture. It's good.
I didn't actually find other pictures, but I thought that was the same one or a similar one. It looked the same kind of construction as the other one.
Yes, yeah, it's the same style of construction, that one. It's
Can I ask you a question about?
Go on.
Sorry. So I can ask you another question about axles then, because Paul was just talking about axles. When you were talking about them originally, when we mentioned hornbeam, I was thinking, how does an axle wear before a nave? Which wears which?
Yeah, I mean, they probably both wear reasonably evenly.
Okay.
I mean, it's quite a big surface area, so you don't see a lot of wear on them, really. I mean, you're probably talking hundreds of years of use before they're a problem.
That's amazing.
But what you also see, like I say, with it being a tapered axle, the shoulder, the shoulder will wear quite evenly. The way they design the shoulder usually make it so it wears evenly as the taper wears, so that it always works up the taper. And that's like how they always stay quite a neat fit. So, you might end up with sort of like about an inch gap between the axle pin and the surface base of the nave, because it slowly works its way up. It's quite interesting. And sometimes they put like a level on as well, which would then be
move it up the taper.
in animal form. Yeah, and then that would work its way up. But you do see them, like the wheels sort of like, and some of the older ones, they sort of flop a bit. Sometimes they'll go clunk, 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 and they'll sort of work along towards the pin, but they don't put a lot of strain against the pin, because the axle sort of being cranked down as it is always pushes them up towards the middle of the vehicle.
Okay.
Just a dead simple bit of technology. It worked really well. And it stops them against the pin, because the pin is all surface area, so it would, you could potentially wear them out quite quick. But yeah, I love all that.
That's another secret bit of tech, that the axle is cranked. It's not straight.
That's it, yeah. And you do come across it where, because like even the modern ones are still like that. The metal axles, the steel axles, and it's quite funny when people make their own vehicles, and so a lot of the gypsy lads that I work for, they'll make their own wagon, and they do a beautiful job of it, and then I make the wheels. But what they sometimes do is they'll put like an old axle on, and they'll put it on sideways, and then the wheels will be pointing off on a funny angle, so you're towing in or towing out. And I did a set of wheels for a lad, and I was away at the time. I think I was in America, and I got this phone call off him. He said, "Phil, I'm having loads of trouble with these wheels." He said, "And I know you know what you're doing with your wheels." He said, "But why is this wheel wandering so bad down the road?" He said, "My vehicles, everyone thinks I'm drunk. I need to do something about it." And I was thinking about it. What axles have you used? He said, "Well, I used some old steel axles. I put them down and made them into axle arms, which go into the end of the axle bed." I said, "Which way is the oil groove pointing in the top of the axle?" What do you mean? So which way is the oil groove pointing? And he took the wheels off, and he put one of the axles on 90 degrees wrong. So he had one wheel was actually right, and the other one was like towed out. And it was going down the road like this. It was fighting itself all the way down the road, and it had polished the metal tires. It was so shiny. Because it was constantly wandering down the road. He said everyone thought he was drunk or there was something wrong with the horse. So he seemed to flip that over. But it's simple things like that, and but he said it kept getting hot, and I'm not surprised really. Yeah, you come up against these things.
Understood. Thank you.
No worries.
Would there be? So you've been in it all your life. Your predecessor's been in it all your life. Is there anything missing in the workshop that you've never really thought, oh, perhaps I ought to have had one of them?
I don't know really. I mean, we don't have a lot of steam bending equipment. I mean, we do basic jigs. When you visit some of the workshops, like the Amish workshops, and they have these big steam bending machines, but to be fair, I don't use them often enough. It's not something that would warrant the space in the workshop when we can do it by hand. I have a big manual crank to do some of my bending. And a lot of the steam bending I do sort of like probably to see some of the bits. So these are these ones up at the top here. These are velocipede rims for velocipedes, things like that. So they're usually quite a small section what I do. So they're not too bad. So there's not really a lot in this workshop that I'm short of. And wages would be nice, I'm short of wages. But I can in this last year, I've been to Japan to do a tour and did a bit of research. I've been to Slovenia, France, Italy. I've got around quite a bit, I've been really lucky. And then I do all the shows as well, so I'm all over the UK, doing lots of cool stuff. So I can't complain really. They can't tax you on experience, can they?
Oh, not yet.
Not yet. they're working on that.
Did you see any difference in Japan from their techniques and their methods? Because a lot of their joinery and even their timber framing is a lot different in the rest of the world.
Yeah, do you know what surprised me was that a lot of the because I got to play about some of the Japanese joinery and that they give us some classes and that, and a lot of what they do is like it's older than what we do. You know, when you look at the tools and that, and the sort of the is it the Yarikana knives, which are for carving, pulling, there's like the curve, and they're really, really quite cool to use, but they're very basic. You know, when you think that is almost going back sort of, you know, nearly 1,000 years in our tool technology in the West. But they've stuck with it, you know, and they're very, very skilled with it. But yeah, it surprised me. I thought they would be a bit more advanced with the tools and a bit more complex. I mean, the fine planes that they do, and that is just phenomenal. If you see the shavings that we did, I think some of the ones I took off were like 0.17 of a millimeter or something like that. It was ridiculous. Millimeters, but I was quite impressed. Yeah, I mean, impressed with the quality of the work. They really do. They work to a high standard, and the work ethic and the way they sharpen the tools. I mean, they spend so much time sharpening everything, which is great because I've always been a bit obsessive about sharpening. And I've always said little and often. And I was quite impressed that I took some of my tools with me to do a demo. In fact, this wheel at the back, this little wheel's been in my suitcase and it's been over to Japan. Come back. It's when they were looking at my suitcase in customs and they were a bit like, that's a bit strange. You know, there's a few tools in there. There's a side axe and all that. With are we going to let this guy in? And then I kind of explained and showed them the cover letters, say what I'm doing. They're like, oh yeah, come on in then. Yeah, I do get some funny looks. I got the same in America as well. I was quite impressed when I traveled I flew from Seattle into Calgary with my suitcase with all the tools and bits and bobs I collected on the way across the States. And then I get there and they'd put a little note in to say that they'd searched my case, just a generic note. But someone had gone on with a biro and put loads of exclamation marks all over it. We've searched your case. We know what you're up to, kind of thing. And there was a roll of duct tape in there from the camera gear as well, and some rip ties and an axe, a few handmade nails, big handmade nails, things like that. So it did look a bit, you know, a bit
like a circus act.
Yeah, but
you ever heard that there's a song called One Piece at a Time? You ever heard that?
No.
It's Johnny Cash. It's about a bloke stealing a car one piece at a time from the factory he's working at. It looks like your suitcase.
I mean, I came back. I mean, where did I put my Williamsburg axe? I've had it in. I've just got my other axe.
I hope somebody's took a screenshot of this workshop.
Yeah.
That was the side axe that I brought back, Williamsburg. That was a copy of one of the axes they found in the well at town. Was that they copied a worn out axe, Scottish bearded pattern axe, and it should have been about that long probably. I'll get a lifetime out of it though, won't I? So it's a lovely axe to use. The only problem is that my friend put the handle in for me when we were in the States, and it's just not offset enough. So it's not bad for doing tendons on spokes and that, but you can't really hew any big wide pieces out with it because you catch your knuckles. But, I'm very lucky to have that.
Could you take all the finish off and steam bend it?
Say again, sorry?
Could you take all the finish off and steam bend that handle?
Yeah, I mean, I keep thinking it's going to shrink and I can just knock it out and I can alter it a bit because I will put an offset on it if I alter it a bit. But it's never shrunk any on me. I might have to put it by the house fire for an hour or two and just see if it shrinks a bit more. But, I've no doubt it'll shrink one day. But it's lovely to use still. And all the stuff that I've worked with, I take it all over. It's been all over the world, that axe. well travelled now. And when I'm doing a TV program for BBC Scotland called Loggerheads, and I use hardwoods all the time, but on that we were using Sitka spruce, and I actually buckled the axe, chopping a knot on a piece of Sitka spruce. It just goes to show how tough softwoods can be sometimes. But, that took a bit of wearing to get that back out, the buckle out of it. But,
yeah, I took a massive chunk out of a Marple's plane blade on the knot on softwood.
Yeah, it's surprising, isn't it? It's it's not all soft.
No.
Phill, just for my understanding, is wheelwrighting, wainwriting, and coachmaking a different guild or trade in the UK?
Yeah. So the wheelwrights mostly did the wheels, and the wainwrights did the wagons and carts, and then the cartwrights did the carts.
Okay, because it's one guild, one trade over here in Austria.
Yeah, nowadays here it's one trade.
But it's always been that way in England or in the UK.
Yeah, so I mean, to be fair, if you went into the villages, so village wheelwright, they always said the village wheelwright was the most skilled because they would do everything. They would do everything from, like my granddad used to say, he used to make potato shovels and everything, and plowshares, and they made everything for the village, and even doing the undertaking. So they often made coffins and did the undertaking as well. In fact, there's 3 companies in Southport, in my local town, that are undertakers now that were wheelwrights back in the day. So we're talking 1960s, 70s, they packed in doing the wheels and went on to just doing the undertaking.
That's fascinating, because it would have been the joiners over here who are still up to date, the coffin makers and undertakers. The village joiner usually is it here.
Yeah, well, this is it. I mean, they had the skills to make the coffins and that, didn't they? So and that's what we've seen here. My granddad used to make coffins when he was a young lad, and he worked for an undertaker's, and he used to have to go along in the funeral cars and that every now and then. So he'd have to get his best suit on, and he'd go off and he'd do the undertaking. Then they go back, dust it off, and go back in the workshop and carry on making wheels or whatever they were doing. They only had oil lamps as well in his workshop, so they'd be finishing coffins, polishing them and that in the dark with an oil lamp, ready for a funeral the next morning. So he had many fun stories.
But your 4 generations of wheelwrights always were just focused on wheelwrighting, no coachmakers. Even your great-great-grandfather.
Yeah, we've always done a bit of everything, to be fair. I mean, my great-grandfather was mostly wheels, but he worked in a brickworks, so he used to make everything from brick molds to wheelbarrows to hand carts. They did every aspect. So we were quite lucky that we've been sort of a broad spectrum of skill with that. And like I say, we did a lot of hand carts. I mean, we made hundreds of them every year. And as you can see in the background, probably if you look up above me here, this is a swingle tree. Where are we? Somewhere, aren't we? That's one. So that's that's the kind of thing we make as well. And this was more sort of village wheelwrights would do this kind of thing. There's saddle trees at the back, which are like for the cart harnesses to go on and things like that. So we would make them, and then the harness maker would use the wooden part and add all the leather work to it. So my family, I've been very lucky that my family has done sort of all that sort of broad spectrum of the craft. And I think it was more like that in the villages, but in the towns and cities, it was usually very specialised. So there would be the wheelwright, there would be the cartwright, there would be the wainwright, things like that. They would all be separate crafts. I mean, even down to the metalwork. You used to in the cities, you would often get a blacksmith to do all the metalwork. Whereas in some villages, the blacksmith and the wheelwright would be next door to each other, and they would work together on everything anyway. And I often come across that still now. You'll meet people out on the road when I'm doing demonstrations, and they go, "Oh, my uncle was a blacksmith, and he used to do the wheelwrighting with a wheelwright and all." And they always tied in, and you hear the same story time and time again in different towns, different areas, and and then you get, oh, do you know what? They did undertaking as well. And it's just that same common theme right through Britain. It's quite interesting.
Beautiful.
Chedham's Yard although it's a wheelwright shop, it's a blacksmith's workshop as well. There's the forge there as well, so they were working as wheelwrights and blacksmiths.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, it's often the way, especially in rural areas. It was I see a lot of that.
But beautiful talk, and great to see you keeping the craft alive. Such a great insight.
No problem.
So thank you. So thankful for you.
Glad you enjoyed it. It's nice to talk to people that are interested.
Is the tire just a mild steel? Is it?
Yes, nowadays mild steel, and we butt weld them now. They used to be iron when iron was cheaper, but as soon as mild steel became sort of cheap enough to get hold of or on a par with, and it soon moved over to steel because it was slightly better to work. Bit more conformity to it, and the thing as well, like I get people go, oh, they're not fire welded anymore, and it's like, well, there's a reason for that, and that's because electric welding is a bit better. So you get some of the old fire weld with it. And I like fire welding, don't get me wrong, I'm a bit of a traditionalist, but when it comes to it, if you do a good quality electric weld now with a stick welder, I did up to coded welding standard at college when I trained, and they put us in the twisting machines and all this, and the thousands of pounds of torque that they could put on a good weld. It was quite impressive to see them tested. So a good electric weld will do the job. We do see a bit of trouble though. You get people that are too lazy to grind the fillet the welds out, as we call it. So we always bevel the ends of the metal, taper them in so that they've got a point down to a valley for the weld to go in. Well, some people will just butt them and then weld on the surface, then grind that weld off, and they've only got a tiny bit of weld in there.
Yes, it's quite weak.
So I replaced some wheels for I can't really, they don't like people to talk about them, but anyway, we were racing at Royal Ascot, so let's put it that way. They had a racing drag at Royal Ascot, and the wheels got smashed to bits, and the reason why was because they had someone else do the wheels, and they just welded on the surface and then ground the weld off, and the wheels, the tires had snapped off, and then they'd still raced with the tires off. Which, if from what you probably heard in the talk, you need that compression to keep the wheel laterally strong. But then because they raced with the tires off, and it's just smashed the wheels to bits. So they came to me and they said, "Can you do anything with this?" I'm like, "I think we need some new wheels here." But these are the little bits of getting it just right. For the sake of grinding the welds, filleting that valley out to put your weld into makes all the difference.
I mean, I'm fascinated by all the handsaws on the back wall.
Yeah. Like I say, a lot of them are just for show, really. There's a lot of them. I wouldn't say scrapping, it's a scrapping, but I've just pulled a nice little saw out. It's been cut down, and I make it for my little lad. And I just looked up at the rack and I thought that is a perfect size for a 4-year-old.
Right.
And it's actually the teeth. He's had a bit of abuse, but the teeth are cut perfect. So if I sharpen it, it's got a nice little handle on everything. So But he came in, he caught me on the bench. And he said, "Oh, can I have that?" I'm like, no, it's not sharp. I've got a nice little old technical plane as well, like with a cutaway. So he's got a little technical jack plane, a few other bits, and some nice boxel handled chisels as well, which some of them were my granddad's. So I think he'll be made up with them. And hopefully it'll stop him dropping them on the concrete. He's done 2 of mine in the last month.
This has been an absolutely fantastic evening, Phill. Thank you for coming on. But as various of our numbers are gradually disappearing, we should probably feel free to stop and carry on and we'll talk further. But I'd like to propose a toast to Phill, on the bench, and absent friends.
Phill,
bench.
Phill,
bench.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As everybody said, a brilliant talk, Phill. You're such a natural presenter of your craft. Utterly fascinating. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
And you have, I think, got the record for the longest actual talk.
That's not a surprise if you know me, though. I can talk a lot.
Well, it's not that we're bored yet either. It's just that I think we should give you the chance to take a breather.
No, it's all good.
It is all good stuff. It's familiar enough, but slightly different to most of what we do. So
the poor lad's going to need a meal break soon.
I think so.
I say, Phil, in amongst my collection, I've got this little beauty.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've got one of them for our local society.
Oh yeah, right.
So it's got all the pricing in it.
It is, yeah. And you know what? It's such an absolute time capsule of what the day was back then.
Yeah, it's funny because I found some bits in my drawers the other day before you go.
And if anybody wants to see that, it's up on the task website, that manual, price book.
Found like old ledgers from my uncle's workshop and my granddad's.
Oh wow!
And you got a full set of wheels here, £423. Which you couldn't get the wood for that for one wheel now. It's
What kind of year was that, Phil?
Let's have a look. There was some dates on some of it. I mean, this will be from probably when I was at school. So, it's quite interesting when you look through because I've got like jobs from Ireland, channel and rubber, things like that, like the cost of channel and rubber back in the day, and enough channel and rubber for a set of wheels here, which they bought in from another company. Should buy in from another company. 145 quid plus VAT for a full set of channels and rubbers, which I mean, just a foot of rubber now is about 14 quid a foot. So I think that was very cheap. Yeah, it must be getting, but this will be 80 something. This
we moved away slightly. We moved away slightly in topic.
Oh yeah, sorry.
when you were saying about in terms of cost, etc., you said about importing American white oak.
Yes.
Because of shortage here. Why are you not drawing from the French market?
So I do. Well, I used to buy quite a bit of French oak actually. Now the problem is, if you know French oak, depending where it grows, can make a massive difference to the quality of the oak.
Yeah, because further south it grows faster, so thus hasn't quite got the strength in it. You want it from the Limousin and above, so it's a bit slower growing.
So I got a lot from the Limousin because just by chance my parents moved out there, and I found a beautiful sawmill there, and he knew exactly where every tree had grown, what side of the hill, and he knew what I needed. It was really good. And I found that at the higher altitudes in Limousin, it grows very, very slowly, which is what I'm looking for. Because you want, for the oaks, you want rigid oak, so you want that really close grain, which is the opposite to what you want for the ash, because you want quite fast grown ash, because you've got more spring. And I got quite a bit of oak from there. And I only stopped really bringing it in, one because I was getting enough around here mostly at the time. I'm struggling again at the moment, but Brexit as well. I just sort of worried about the import duty costs. I mean, that might change, but the the quality.
Well, I'll load next time I'm coming back. I'll load up with some, drop it in Liverpool then, shall I? Or Stockport, sorry.
yeah. Well, that's all I used to like. I used to go over with a van and I'd take stuff over for my parents or for the friends, and then I would come back with a van load of oak. Probably borderline overloaded as well at times.
Yeah.
Also, American white oak is a different variety of species because it's Quercus alba and European oak is Quercus robur.
Lucas Rober, yeah, and I mean, some of the stuff we were using in Williamsburg was red oak, and I was very impressed with the quality of it. To be fair, but
Really?
I found
Red oak?
Yeah, yeah, it surprised me because a lot of the red oak, especially what we see over here, it's very ring porous and very. It's not very good quality stuff, but I mean, what they had in Williamsburg specifically was very hard. I was quite impressed with it, yeah, because I was surprised when they said that.
And not prone to sort of rotting out faster, or
it didn't seem to be a problem, no.
Not while you were there.
But that said, you know, it was whether it would last. I mean, I'm only seeing sort of like new stuff really there with it, but yeah, I would never use red oak over here. But they did keep winding me up about the quality. You know, we don't send you the good stuff, he said.
But, yeah, I think there's a little bit of truth in that even everywhere, isn't there?
There is, yeah. I mean, some of the best English oak I've ever seen was in Germany, and it was they were importing it into Germany from England, and they were getting some beautiful stuff over there. I've not managed to find a date on any of this, but I think it's either late 80s or very, very early 90s.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
it's when you sort of put it in those terms as well, though. It's when you put it in those terms that you get a set of wheels for 400 and what was it, 425 quid or something you said?
Yeah, something like that. It was nothing really. I mean, my uncles always joked that there's no money in wheels. And when I took over the wheelwriting side, my uncle very kindly, who ran the family business, he said, if you want the wheels, he says, they're yours. Anything you want to go with it, the wheelwriting stuff, it's all yours. You do that. He says, but I don't think you'll make a living from it. And he was probably not far wrong, to be fair. It's only the fact that I did a lot of other stuff that to sort of tied me on with it, you know, and sort of doing the talks, the TV, that all helps. But yeah, there's no date on this one. It's a bit of a shame.
The thing is, if all 6 or 7 of you that are left stop making the wheels, they're not going to get very far, are they?
No, well, that's the problem. You put us all in the middle and oh, here we go, 1991.
91.
The top of the page there, 91. So
right.
Yeah, that's quite fun. But it's stuff I found just covered in dust in the bottom one of the cabinets. So these are all the hand carts that we used to do. So these are all the different companies.
Oh wow!
And
are they up on your Instagram, Phill? Is there
yeah, I might put some more pictures on. That's Gordon Gaskell's. So they were one that we did quite a few for. But and then we've got Blundell and Rimmers. So these are all local farmers mostly and farmer producers. Trying to find. We did have a really good one. I don't know if we got an actual picture of it because the sign writer made a mistake. And I think it was Gaskell's because they changed the names on some of the carts to Gaskell's at the end because there must have been several of them in the family. And I don't think we got a picture of it, but he put an extra S at the end. We don't know how he did it. He was getting on a bit at the time, the old boy that did it. And he did put this extra S at the end. And we got this phone call back from the company when we dropped it off. No one had noticed. We dropped it off and they went, hey, you know that hand cart that you just dropped off? And my uncle's like, yeah. The Gaskell's. He's like, yeah. He said, has your sign writer got a stutter? Because he's put an extra S at the end. It's Gaskell's. And he said, oh, I'm sorry. I'll come back and sort that. He says, you won't. He says, we're keeping that one. It's the best one we got. They loved it just because it had that spelling mistake. It's all gone really now. No, it's not in here, that one. But yeah, as I say, we've got all these different companies that were at the market. There was hundreds and hundreds of them that just. These are all the backboards, and this is the butterfly chamfer that I always had to look through when I was pushing the carts. Because I just couldn't see over the headboard. Yeah, I love all that. It's I've been very lucky to have all this behind me. But
you can imagine a drunk walking up from the other end of the road, trying to work out how the hell this bloody handcart was moving.
Yeah. Oh, they knew us at the market. Like I mean, it was that big. They had 3 banks in the market itself, 3 separate banks. They had several cafes. It was massive, you know, and it's just that whole industry. It was all over the country. They had these markets, and they've all gone now. You know, it's a bit of a distant memory. In fact, I'm doing a project next month. Actually, I'm doing a project with Phill University about intangible cultural heritage, and part of that is talking about the markets and about the handcart trade that we used to do for them. It's quite nice that they're going to do a bit of work on that, because I think, you know, once I've gone, my generation has gone, it's forgotten, you know, as they're consigned to history.
Andy did show us video of your son actually splitting wood for fire, I think.
Oh, that was brilliant!
And he threw away the small mallet they had and picked up the biggest one he could see.
Oh yeah, so that.
It was nice to watch, and I've looked through
that was just
either your Facebook or your Instagram, so it looks like your son's interested, and you might have some training to do with him in the future.
Yeah, well, funny enough, he's been using the threading box the other day. That's he's just done a bit of thread cutting. It's just made that. So
what?
Yeah. I mean,
I think there's a video on your Facebook, and you oil the threads for him, because he was struggling to turn the thread box, so you actually stick some oil on it for him, and he's turning away.
He asked me, he said, "Can I put oil on it?" Like, yeah, we'll make it easy. And he's like,
did I hear him say, "Can we have some bee oil"? Was he trying to say
oil?
Boiled linseed oil?
Yeah, he wanted linseed oil on it, I think. He knew it was binding, and he's like, "Can we put oil on it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we can put linseed on it if you want." "Yeah, can we have a cup of linseed on it?" So we put linseed oil on. And I love that. A bit nicer, but,
I love that. Absolutely love the way that you've got that lad so well into the life, into he's going to go places. He's got aptitude at such a young age.
I hope we can keep it going. I mean, I'm not going to pin all my hopes that it's going to be in the family, but it would be nice to keep the skills that we've got here going, you know, the way we do things here, because everyone does things slightly different. And it's not to say that our way is the best, but it works well, you know, and it's just to keep that alive, you know, and if he's keen, and hopefully. So I think that the sad thing is, like I say, I make more money now. I can go and do a TV show, or I can go and do a demonstration. I can make more money there with less outlay and less stress than I can making the wheels. But it's I was joking. I was talking to a fellow that's into marketing, and he said, you know, from a marketing point of view, describe wheelwrighting. I said, well, wheels are my lost leader. And he looked at me and he went, "That's a really good description, that." Because the wheels, you know, I can make a living on them, but it's hard to make them pay a good living, you know, whereas the actual going out and doing the talks and demos and stuff is far better money. And it's a bit of a shame that it's in that position, but I think it is changing. I mean, give it another 10, 15 years, I think it'll change a lot. I think, especially because we're in a position now where there's so few young people doing the craft.
But that's especially where the UNESCO intangible heritage thing that does a really good job there.
Say again, sorry.
That's where the UNESCO intangible heritage thing really does a great job. It really saved many traditional crafts in Austria and I think in Germany and Slovenia and the surrounding countries from extinction. So from printing cloth in the old way to even binding the little chamois beards for heads and stuff like this, they get the media attention, and then young people get into the crafts again. Many of those crafts are thriving again. So that's really well worth going into that.
And someone said to me, you know, there's been some research in the UK about sort of what young people think of craft. And they say, when you think of a craftsperson, what would you describe them as? And it's like an old bearded man. And it's trying to move away from that. you know, because but then I sat there and I went, well, that's not true. And then I looked at myself in the reflection in the window, and I
So
thought,
I'm just looking at this
beard.
screen, which I'm looking at, and I think
And we're all old beards
there's maybe Garth doesn't have a beard.
I'm thinking, should I go and have a shave? But the problem is, if I have a shave, I look about 12, you know. So, which I'm looking.
I have a
at.
shave and I look like a spud.
Now, you know,
Are you actually the youngest of the 6 or 7 wrights that are master wrights in the country?
I'm the youngest Master Wheelwright in the UK. Sadly, and we've got how many journeymen is there at the moment? There's about 3 or 4 journeymen. Who have recently qualified in the last 5 years or so. So they'll have to be journeymen for about 10 years before they can be a master.
Right.
I think it's how it works.
Mm.
But there's no exam framework built into that. So, you know, as long as they've done their apprenticeship, whether they've been carried on and done a good job or not, they'll still kind of can get the master certificate, I presume. I mean, the master certificates were handed out to us basically so we could carry on and do the training, which was City and Guild based master certificate. But it's nice to have it. I don't know. Like I say, we didn't have to sit an exam for it, though, so I don't know if I'd put much behind it. You know, it's just there for.
Well, I always think when they use this term, you know, master carpenter, master wheelwright, whatever, it's almost like you qualify yourself personally, and you build your reputation, and it's for other people to say that you are a master.
Yeah, and that's the way I kind of looked at it. I mean, I was very grateful of the qualification, but I mean, I'm probably one of the. Thinking through it, out of the Master Wheelwrights, I'm probably one of the only ones that actually did a qualification in the trade in the first place. So I studied at Hereford. There might be 1 or 2 others. So I studied at Hereford, and then I also did the Churchill Fellowship, which I would like to think is former training. But like I say, there's always more to learn, and I think that's the problem in that you sort of you can't rest on your laurels. There's always more to learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if my book goes the way I'm hoping it'll go, then I'll hopefully do a lot more research. But it's been a long project getting the book ready.
I'm sure.
How far are you away?
Proposals are in at the moment to hopefully get a publisher on board. I've got a good agent and a co-writer. I'm trying to write 2 books at once, which is probably not the most sensible thing. So we did.
It could be an interesting read, that.
Yeah, it could be. We'll see how it goes. I was trying to get a balance between it being interesting and being informative. You know, you can write all the information down all day long, but it doesn't make a good story. And that's where the co-writer comes in. You know, it's helped. He's really helped. It's been amazing, actually. And it's then making it into a story that's digestible for more people. But getting the information in with it, and that's the clever bit, is to make the information interesting, not just information. And that's where I'm working with that. But we're also writing, so it's we did a horse-drawn journey. We lost our daughter, sadly, and wanted to do a charity journey with 2 horses and a wagon. My former apprentice Joe, who I was talking about earlier, built the wagon. We put the canvas top on and built all the body on it and kitted it out. Got 2 horses. Then we drove to the south of France, horse-drawn, from up here in Lancashire. So we're busy writing the book about that at the moment. So that's been a bit of a. I don't know what I'm doing. I've suddenly got to the point in my life where I decided I've got to write 2 books at once. So we'll see how that goes.
I really hope you will be back to present either of those books, when swaps you away.
Yeah. Well, they're both about craft anyway, and.
If there's any links which you want tagging on to the YouTube, just send them through on WhatsApp to us.
Yeah, no worries. I'll see what I can do. Like I say, with the books, we're very early stages in that, so it's. But I'm happy for you to share any of my social media stuff and that as well. As there's all sorts on there. Say from Ted splitting logs. He's gone viral with that. I mean, we got 40 odd million views.
Oh, wow.
And, yeah, didn't make any money off it, but
the bit I liked about that was when he got that heavier mallet, he didn't just try and pick it up with his arms. He actually put it into his hip and leaned back with it. And I thought, that is class. That is just, the lad knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Well, he's gone with that one because when we do pole lathe turning, I host the Lancashire Bodgers at the workshop every month, and he often helps with that. So he usually goes to the big mall when we're splitting logs in the barn for the bodgers. So my eldest lad, who's the one that's showing him how to do it in the video, and he's showing him with a little mallet, and he goes like that, and then it's the way he just goes, forget that, he throws it away, he goes to the big mallet, and he did it with such accuracy as well. And it was just chance. I just had my phone in my hand, and I thought, oh, I'm going to film this, and then it was like the most perfect moment. But, 40 odd million views he was up to on it when across Facebook and Instagram. It's just phenomenal.
Incredible.
The amount of interest and comments. Yeah. One or two people, oh, he shouldn't be lifting that mallet. And I'm like, well, he chose to lift it. We didn't say to him, you need to use that one. He chose, to use that big maul. So
I think that's the way to go these days for education, Phil. What do you call the guy, Andy, that does the barrels?
Oh, Ewan Findlay.
So his social media is kind of, I'm not saying it's exploded, but people like watching like the shorts and the short videos and those heritage crafts. It's educating people because it's been lost to a certain extent. And you're saying, well, there's only 7 left in the country, and there's none in Scotland. I actually had a look through, and I teach in a college. I teach carpentry and joinery in a college, and our apprentices have to complete a portfolio on site, and it's such a broad range. We've actually got a laddie who is workshop based, so he can't do the site portfolio because he doesn't go out on site. So there's actually an architectural route he can take, which is to do with bespoke products and routine products, making them on the bench. But actually within that whole framework, wheelwriting's actually written into there in the Scottish education system. So as part of the apprenticeship, if somebody was doing something with coach building and wheelwrighting and stuff like that, they could still complete an apprenticeship doing that. Yeah. I'm not saying there is anybody doing that in Scotland. There might be and there might not be. But it's one of these things, as you say, it can't be lost. We come across that in this group all the time, and it's like timber framing. Like, there was a guy on recently talking about like heritage and timber framing, and then hewing logs, and getting back to like cathedrals and building arches and stuff like that, and roof structures. These things have got to be kept because the education's got to be passed on.
Yeah, and this is something that we were saying about Japan before. It's the way they keep the skill alive. So they do certain processes in a way that they know they'll have to come back within a generation and do more. So it always keeps them skills alive. And we're going to get to a crunch here if we're not careful, where a lot of them skills are forgotten about. And it only takes for one person to stop for one day. That last person's gone. Them skills have all gone with it. It's not written in a book. The wheelwriting is not written.
The Japanese have so much more respect for traditionalism. If you think about your general chippy or your general joiner, carpenter in the UK, I'm not saying they don't have any respect anymore. A lot of them do. And a lot of the young apprentices that I teach really appreciate the fact that I'll show them age-old skills and think ways of doing things. And there was a boy the other day there, and he was trying to divide up, and he didn't know to actually skew a rule across a board and then divide it by a known number. So if he was dividing it by 3, he would put it on 900 and then split it into 300s. He'd never seen that before. I mean, these are just common things. The joiners these days have not got time to spend showing these small things to them.
No, that's it. And it is, and a lot of it as well, like it's power tools, it's jigs, and it takes a lot of the thinking out of things. When we filmed Loggerhead, which was up in Scotland, and there were good tradesmen on it, a lot of them, and but it made me laugh that one of the lads there, when his chisel set got blunt, he would throw the chisels away and get a new set of chisels.
Oh, good God.
But like you, and he borrowed one of my chisels because he turned up on site and they took the mick out of me because they turned up there and they had these big vans full of power tools. They bring them all out, and I turned up with me little hand cart with a pole lathe on my shoulder, pulling the dog cart along with me, with my little toolbox in, with my hand tools. So I had my side axe and sets of chisels, draw knife, spoke shave, so all the basics. And they were like, "What are you going to do with them?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to do my job." And they had to have a generator running in the background. So they had this generator and a great big cable running off in the woods so they could run all the power tools. And it starts raining. And the health and safety guy goes, "Right, guys, power off. You're going to have to stop until it stops raining." And it's Scotland. It always rains. So there I am with my side axe, chopping away. And they're all just stood there under a canopy watching me work. And at the end, one of them came over to me and said, "Hey, Phil, can I borrow one of your chisels?" He said, I know it's not right to borrow tools. He said, "But I haven't got any sharp chisels with me." And I lent him my 2-inch chisel. And I said to him, "Be careful though, it is razor sharp." And I shaved a bit of hair off the back of my armpit. Razor sharp. And he's like, yeah, no problem. And he went like this up this piece of wood, went right up the side of his thumb. It peeled open. And he come back and he cleaned the blood off and he went, "Thanks for that, Phil." I said, I might need a plaster. Right up. He just wasn't used to sharp tools, but these little bits of things, like it was just that they couldn't understand how I was doing things with the tools that I had, and it's like, because they've never been taught that you can use an axe to use things, or and I loved it, turning up there and set the pole lathe up in the middle of the woods and just de-limbed a branch and used that for my pole, and off I went turning. And that was quite funny because I was turning a piece of wood in the lathe, and I looked up and the whole crew, both sets of teams, because it was a competition, they're all watching me work on the lathe. And I did this bit of turning, what I was turning, took it out, and they were like, "That's brilliant, Phil," and round of applause and all that. And then the director come over and she went, "Did anyone actually film that?" no one actually filmed it. So then I had to take my lathe back down, take it back out, and then come back in and set it all up and start again as if I'd never done it, just so they could get it on camera. But they were that shocked that you could just go into the woods and set up a pole lathe and do the turning, and I mean, I loved that. It was my opportunity to show off, it's just with a handful of tools and a bit of wood.
You should have gave that, isn't it, really? You should have gave that joiner a sharpening stone and let him sharpen his own chisels.
I did talk to him about, actually. He said, "Would you show me how to sharpen tools?" I said, "Yeah, no problem. We'll have a chat." But I mean, there's a lot of good stuff on YouTube, isn't there? It's and I think people often overcomplicate things is one of the problems, or build it up into something big. But I mean, with me, it's little enough, and that's I think where a lot of people get it wrong is they wait and wait and wait until they've really dulled it off, and then
totally agree.
Working then. Yeah, and just little. I mean, my oil stove's right there where I'm working, and that's only an India red as well. It's not that fine a stone, but I mean, I've got my Arkansas stone at the top. Sometimes if I'm doing something fine, I'll use that. But I can put it razor sharp in a couple of passes on that every couple of minutes, and then carry on. And it's so much easier. Especially, I mean, when you're paring elm down, it's like iron going across that grain. So you need them razor sharp. When you get people, they'll work and work and work until the thing's near enough round, and then they've got to put all the effort into honing it back up again. Then, and you start to round the back off as well if you're not careful, don't you? Doing that. So I could complain all day.
What's your when it comes to tools, Phil? What's your name? What's your quality name in tools?
I don't think I've got one. I mean, a lot of my stuff's old stuff, so
yeah, that's what I mean.
I don't know. I mean, my favourite crosscut saw, my favourite saw is my Matterson. I've got an old Matterson saw. That's my favourite. I mean, I've got a bit of a mix. I mean, I've got a set of Marples chisels that I use for a lot of my stuff, my fine stuff. But then I've got a set of boat builders, like a blacksmith made boat builders chisels for me heavy work.
But one of the key names in our sort of world, in this sort of side of the stuff, is Ward and Payne. Across them very often?
No, not really.
No. Well, I'm mad on Howarth, but everybody knows that.
Howarth, yeah. I mean, a lot of people, they look at the plastic handled Marples and they're like, they pull a face, but the older ones, like I've got there, that's an old set I got. It was old stock, so they're actually a decent length of chisel. The new ones are only short, aren't they? They're not much use for now. There's hardly any steel in them. But I've got a panel saw, tenant saw, sorry. That's a Marples, but it's a lovely saw. It's straight as a die. We've never had any trouble with it.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that you do all your sharpening of your saws and things as well.
Yeah. Although that one, the only trouble I've had with this, my granddad used to sharpen them for me. He enjoyed sharpening saws, and one of the last ones he sharpened was this one. And the problem I had was he sharpened it twice from one side, and he couldn't see very well at the end, so he couldn't see what he'd done. And then trying to cut my teeth nice and even again afterwards was a nightmare. It took me years to get the teeth back even. It's like I had one slightly high set, and I just could never quite get them how I wanted them. But I ended up I recut them. I filed them back a bit and recut them. And
Fortunately, I'm the kind of lecturer that I was teaching my class how to build stairs, and they were putting the strings into the nail posts with mortise and tenons.
Mm-hmm.
And the hollow chisel we used to do the nail post was 5/8, and the college doesn't have a 5/8 chisel, but I've got a pig sticker that's 5/8, and it's a big beast. So I pulls that out, and I've got a nice polyurethane headed mallet. That's the carving one. That's the 12-ounce one. But I've got a 30-ounce polyurethane headed mallet, and I like to use that on my mortise chisel so it doesn't damage the wood. I mean, a wooden mallet would be okay, but half my class wanted to use this pig sticker, and they just couldn't believe. I mean, obviously it's sharp, and like when you're cutting down the slope for the string to go into the nail post, it just takes shavings off it, and you don't hardly have to hit it at all. And that's the way I teach in classes, to try and give them old tools. I mean, on the nail post as well, you've got you cut into the nail post for the nosings. I had them with a bracing bit, actually cutting them in. So using a bracing bit to cut them in, and then some of the class were a bit bored with that, so I had to give them speed bits, and then they used obviously cordless tools to actually bore them in. And that's the difference you'll get maybe 3 or 4 in a class that are interested in the old skills, and the ones that just want to get onto it and just do it quick.
It's almost like, for me, like the hand tools are a bit more meditative, aren't they? It's a different way of doing things, and it's some people they're trying to get to the end of the job as quick as they can, where obviously it's like part of the process is the enjoyment of it. And that's the way I've always been. I learned everything by hand first because I wasn't allowed to use the machines. So I grew up in the workshop and without being able to use the machinery. So I had to do everything by hand. And the first machines they let me use the tanging machine, which is cutting the round tenons on, and they let me use the mortising machine. I was probably about 14 when they let me do that. But then, it was only when I got into my late teens that I'd start using the power tool. And I went to college at Preston College, and they had a machine shop there. And the problem was they put me in with a lot of school leavers because I was school leaving age. I went to do cabinet making, and they just wanted to stab each other with the chisels and things like that. I wanted to actually do woodwork. And while they were all dealing with the delinquents that were in the class, because that's most of what the class was, I sort of went looking at the tools in the cabinet, and the planes had been dropped, and the frogs were all off on funny angles and all sorts, and they just weren't right. So I slowly went through and I fettled them all up, and then I was just about doing the last one. I was setting up, take a shaving off a piece of wood, and the tutor comes over. He goes, "What are you doing? Not meant to be messing with them tools." I'm like, "Well, I was just sorting them out for you, mate." And he went, "Well, why?" I said, "Because they're a mess. They've been dropped, they've been abused, they've been." And he goes, "You shouldn't be in my class." And I thought I was in trouble at this point because he picked one up and he looked at it and he went. Took a shaving off. And he went, "What are you doing in my class? You shouldn't be in my class." I went, "Well, I'm here to learn cabinet making." He says, "Yeah, but you're in the delinquents class." He said, "You should be in a different class." And he moved me up. I did my year 2 straight away. Moved me into year 2, and the tutor in the other class came over to me. He says, "Hey, you're very good at sharpening planes." And he's like. I got on well with them lot, you know, they were all right. But again, I got really lucky because when I went into that other class, there was a load of older gentlemen in there that were retired, and they'd come from BAE, from British Aerospace. And they basically, British Aerospace, when they laid them all off for the retirement, they paid for them to go on this course as a retraining thing. And they went to do cabinet making. And they were all, some of them had worked on Diablo mosquitoes and things like that. So they were really, really skilled tradesmen. And to work in a classroom with them was just absolutely brilliant. And they all looked at me when I walked through the door. Oh, here we go. We got some young lad in the class, and they were taking the mick out of me. And then one or two of them were looking at how sharp I'd sharpened my tools and that. And we got on really well with them after that because they were like, no, actually, you know, he's had a head start, this one. So, but that was fun. A long time ago now, though. That's they've been 16, so 20 odd years ago. But best part 30 years ago. That soon goes, doesn't it?
Yep.
But yeah,
could I just ask, Phill? So you've come on here and done this for us and that. Do you know of any more heritage sort of people who'd be up for doing this sort of thing?
That's how I think. I mean, in the woodworking side of it, a lot of coppice workers and stuff like that. But that's more greenwood.
Well, so to be honest, we're not a wood core, if you know what I mean. So we had a really good talk from. Do you know Grace Horn, the scissor maker?
Yeah.
So Grace actually did a presentation for us, and she nailed it. Absolutely nailed, just like yourself. So we're a broad church, really. So it's there's lots of things.
I'll have a think, because I'm sure I'll think of someone. I meet that many people on my travels. Sure I'll find some interesting ones.
Yeah.
There's because there's quite a bit going on out there. It's surprising what's going on, you know, and I think sort of getting involved with different organisations is nice because you start to find out a bit of what's hidden away, you know. And there's a lot of people who don't talk about what's being done.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I'm part of as well is I help organise a steam rally locally to Leicester, and I've tried contacting the blinking Heritage Crafts group to see if they've got like a mobile trailer or something that bring out just for promotions type thing, but they've never really got back to me.
No, they don't do grassroots very well. That's the only thing I'd complain about. I know it's hard to do grassroots and getting out there and doing demos, but to have a core of people that are members that already do it, you know, it wouldn't take a lot to tie it together, really. But I mean, that's their choice, isn't it? It's their what they want to do with it. But I mean, I do a really good show that we do every year, and I really like the crew we've got there. It's down in Wiltshire. It's the Chalk History Festival.
Oh yeah, I've seen it.
And it's a long event, but we built a working guillotine last year. I mean, I only helped with that one a little bit, but I built an undercarriage for a wagon while I was there, 4-wheel wagon, and hooped all the wheels this year. We do like a big project where we all get together as craftspeople. We all do a little part of the project, or we all work together with it. And it works really, really well. And next year we'll hopefully be building some really cool stuff, but I can't say what we're building yet. But it'll probably be wheel related this time, because they've said every year that we're going to do something with the wheels, and then we've never done anything with the wheels. You know, it's like they got me there as a wheelwright, one of the only ones about, and we don't do any wheels. You know, so next year is going to be the year for wheels. But yeah, I mean, it's something like that. You know, if the Heritage Crafts were sort of pushing that around, we could go around and do that all over the country. And I mean, I do shows anyway. I do that many shows now. In the summer, I'm barely home, which I love it. You know, getting around and visiting different places.
It's the place I've seen you. I've seen you once. I do remember that traveller, the traveller you picked up there with the. So you'd got that at Leicester, Barden Hill.
Beacon, was it?
Beacon Hill. Sorry, yes, Beacon Hill. Well done, chap. Yeah, I've seen you there.
Yeah, that'd be the one.
Yeah,
that's a shame that's gone. That was a good show. That
it was.
it was. I used to hoop wheels that one.
Yeah.
I burnt my arm really bad with it one year, actually.
Oh.
Yeah. The St. John's ambulance were made up because it had nothing but bee stings and stuff like that. There was nothing exciting for them. And then I turned up with a massive burn, and I did the demo. We used to get a really good crowd at that one. Actually, it was impressive how many people you got watching the demo. Hundreds of people. Unless some years it was dead and you got no one there. But most years it was really, really busy. And I did the demo, and we had these quite big wheels that we'd hooped. And the lad that was working with me, we lifted the wheel off the stand, and the hoops are still quite hot at this point. They're still black heat. And he let go of his side to go and do what he thought he was going to have to do next, which was to sort of cover the fire up, get the next one ready. And it was sat on a piece of packing on the hooping plate when he lifted it up with me. And as he let go, it dropped off this packing, and I caught it, and it landed on my arm here, and the hoop just sat perfectly on my arm. And it burnt, and it was reasonably deep, and it burnt through my clothes instantly. But I carried on and did the demo because we had another 2 hoops to do, which were already in the fire. And as I said at the end, I says, "Anyone got any questions?" This woman went, "Did that really hurt when it burnt your arm?" And I went, "It's a scratch, you know." And then the St. John's.
Now that's the ultimate professional, is that? You carry on.
Yeah.
To be fair, that was the
You
lesson.
can't stop.
That was the lesson that you learned from your granddad, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. You can't stop. He said that to me when he bust my fingers. He said, "Well, you can't stop now. We got wheels in the hoops in the fire." I was like, "All right," so I carried on. And it was it was my right hand as well, and I'm trying to swing a sledgehammer with one-handed sledgehammer with my right hand, and it wasn't fun. But yeah, the joys of the job. But you can't stop when you've got to get them done. And when you had a crowd, and then there was a gentleman leant over. He went, "I really fancy a bacon butty now," and I'm like, "Yeah, well, it does smell a bit like burnt bacon." But yeah, that actually healed surprisingly well considering how deep a burn it was. But yeah, that was Beacon Hill. That I used to like that one. Always liked that one. We used to another good one not far from there in Derbyshire, which is gone as well now. Elverston Castle. That was always a good one.
Oh yeah.
I always enjoyed that. I've done that for many years, and they've stopped now. The council stopped it. I think COVID killed a lot of the shows. That was a shame when COVID came along and got rid of a lot of shows. But I think there's a lot of bounce back now in replacement. And some of the festivals are brilliant. They look after us really well. But,
a lot of the steam, there's quite a few steam rallies dropping off, and a lot of them are suffering with the regulations, the health and safeties, and
insurance
and
is
things.
a big one for them.
Yeah, I mean,
we're running slack belts and things. I would imagine.
Yeah. The sprung-in teeth on the big circular throws and all that, you know, and
I mean, the rally we do, we're actually hitting our best ever events in the past 2 or 3 years.
Well, I think as the other ones go, the people which are enthusiastic about it are going to have to travel.
That's it. Yeah, and that's it. I mean, the Great Dorset going, that was a bit of a shame.
Oh,
really.
crikey!
But because that was massive, wasn't it? Yeah, that was COVID, really, wasn't it? I mean, that was that. I was booked in for that, and then the COVID pandemic hit. But I mean, they were struggling with that. I think they had a lot of trouble with crime and that, didn't they? There and
it was it was a dodgy old place at night. That sometimes.
Yeah, I heard.
But I was there one year, and that somebody got chased, and he jumped over this bloody thing and landed in a great big water pool, place where they used to store the water anyway. But it was basically you couldn't get out.
Service reservoir.
Yeah, to the fields, and he passed away. He died, unfortunately, that night.
Right, Anton.
Yeah.
No.
Just another thing. Do you know about the Wheelwright shop that got moved?
No.
Going back a few years now, a village nearby here, Oh, Sheepy Magna.
Yeah, that's the one which Richard was talking about.
No, that's Wellsbourne. That's
is
Cheddar
that a
Jar.
different one?
Yeah. No, there was a wheelwright shop there, and the wheelwright, like, he wanted it to be saved, but he was retiring and nobody was taking it on. And at the time, there was a chap who worked for Leicester Council. He did a deal with him to take it, and they took it down brick by brick and rebuilt it. Well, unfortunately, at a place called Snibston Discovery Park, which was a lovely museum next to in Colville, next to the pit, and it was all rebuilt there. And I did actually get up there once and actually see it. It was all shut up, but the council, in their ultimate wisdom, closed the museum, pulled it down, but the wheelwright shop is still up there, Moody's.
Right.
And the machine shop that was under a tin roof, that's all been took down now, but the machines are all in storage, and all the exhibits that were in they got a lovely big wheel lathe with a great big wheel in the loft, and it was quite sad really that they now use it as a cycle hire place. But I was really, so the guy who saved it, he fell out with the council in the end over different matters, etc. But he did a talk for me, well, for our. So I'm a member of the National Vintage Tractor Club as well, Tractor and Engine Club, and I booked him to come and do a talk at our club night, and he come and did this talk and it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I wanted to get him on here, but it dragged and dragged a bit, and he's in a position where he can't do it now. But now I was looking forward to another talk from him, but I didn't know whether you knew about that one, because it was an epic move, Took it apart brick by brick.
The whole workshop.
Yeah.
I'm scarred for life by traction engines. After being caught in the queue going up from Keighley, when there'd been a traction engine rally and I got behind it took me an hour and a half to get home. Because there was like a queue of about 8 of them doing sort of like 4 miles an hour up the hill.
Yeah, well, they do that from around here. A few of my mates have engines, you see, and they like rollers and stuff like that, and they love causing traffic jams. That's what they do for fun. And they count how many cars they can get behind them before they have to pull in. But, it's nice that people are keeping them alive, though, isn't it? It's
oh yeah.
I mean, they're beautiful things, but as I say, it's just something like, if I see traction engine anything, I'm going in a different direction.
Yeah.
Have you been to the one at Whitby, Andy?
No, bit too far north. Mind you, then again, I've been to the Dorset one. That's probably as far.
Sorry, you've been to a Dorset one. That's a lot further.
Probably.
Yeah, it's a long way, Dorset.
I mean, Whitby's about 2 hours. I would imagine 2.5.
Yeah, it can't be much further than that to Dorset, to Blandford, Darrington.
Blandford Forum.
Did you used to know any of the old greats? Yes. Did you used to know any of the old greats, Phil? The old names, like, I mean, Fred Divner or Jack Hargreaves or them sort of.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm not far from Fred's place. Really, I mean, we're only about an hour away. And when I was an apprentice doing my cabinet making, I worked for a company that restored Victorian furniture and that. And we did like a lot of park furniture and bandstands, all sorts. It was quite interesting. And I worked with a fella that was a whitesmith, a fella called Andy. And I mean, that's a very rare skill that you don't come across, isn't it? Whitesmiths now. Everyone's heard of a blacksmith, but he was one of the so he was like the foreman there. Really, he was holding it together, and he but he used to work with Fred. He knew Fred really well, and every time we worked in Bolton loads on the jobs we were doing up there. We worked up at Smithils and places like that, and every time we were up there, he's like, well, we'll call in on Fred. You'll like Fred. And like every time we went to call in and wasn't in, it was like every time we got there. So I never got to chat to him proper. You know, I met him at a show once and he was all right. Like we had a good little natter, but it was like I never got to go and chat to him at his place. And I was really gutted about that when he died because the amount of times that we went up there, he was, oh no, he's not in. There we go. But
it was the fact that he used to be. It goes sort of like 100 foot up and you just stick a ladder up and.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you watch the videos of him. It's absolutely how he survived. I don't know.
After having 2 pints in the pub at lunchtime.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to go up one of those sober, would you? I think that was his line.
They were different days. Weren't they? But yeah, sadly, I mean, Jack Hargreaves. I mean, he was between 90. Was it 90s? Some early 90s when he passed away. Was it?
I can't remember
now. Yeah, I like all his stuff though. I mean,
yeah,
Wheelwrights. He visited Wheelwrights a few times in his programs. He was out of town. There was
yeah.
Oh, was it The Old Life or what the other ones he got? The Old Country, wasn't it? Old Country.
Yeah.
He did a few, but yeah, the old greats. But we don't get the same characters anymore, I don't think, do we?
I don't know. You're on here.
Yeah. I do. I try my best. I mean, I keep filming stuff, but we've done we filmed one not long back, and it's just disappeared. The whole production team's disappeared off the face of the earth. I don't even know if it's ever going to go on TV. That'll be a good program if we do it. We were striking a wheel on that one as well, so that was good fun. So strakes, instead of having a solid tire, you have segments of metal.
Yeah,
and they're nailed on. But there's a special way of doing it, and I don't get to do them often. And it was a nice little thing that they asked if I do it. I was like, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, that's good. That's a good excuse to do it. And then we filmed it. We're working with a young lad called Ruben Owen. He's I don't know if you know the Yorkshire Shepherdess, Amanda. It's her son, and he's a real handy lad as well. You know, when you work with a young lad that I'd never worked with him before, and he came in and he took me instruction perfect, and he did everything perfectly. I said, might take a couple of goes at getting this right. First time, every time. It's like making me look bad. But well, yeah, we straked a wheel and that was good fun. But I've never heard anything back from him since. And yeah, I've got probably another 2 filming jobs lined up in the next sort of six months. But we'll see how they pan out. You know, I've done loads over the years and they never make it to the TV. They spend all this money making a program and then it never goes anywhere. It just sits in the archives. And I did one with David Jason, and that never went anywhere.
And then all of a sudden it just surfaces. It's sort of like, oh, I think we've got some footage.
Yeah, that was
something will come up, and then it's sort of like all of a sudden everybody goes squirreling away.
I mean, I did a program for I was part of a program years ago for it was for ITV. It was probably one of my first things I did for TV. I'm going back probably nearly 20 years now. And I did some wheels for a waste collection wagon. It was an old bin wagon, a horse-drawn bin wagon for Thameside Corporation. And they wanted to use it for part of a recycling drive. So they're going to go around with the horse doing recycling and all that, just as a bit of a gimmick. And I did these wheels for them, and they came to film us hooping them, the company that was making the program. And the council bosses turned up with them and all that. And it was a nice event. But then we had an old donkey at the time that she was very lame. And she was on her last legs, really. And she was in her 30s, getting on a bit. And my granddad used to open the stable door for her, and she'd just sort of amble about around the yard and around the fire. And then when the fire went out, she used to stand in the embers. And it must have been nice on her arthritis. But this one day we were filming, and he opened the thing not thinking, and this donkey come rushing out, like new lease of life, and went and stood in the bonfire and set on fire. So we're there with this film crew filming us, and this bloody donkey on fire. So I'm like, And the most embarrassing moment of my life, it was supposed to be the pinnacle of my career. I'm there hooping these wheels in front of the camera crew and all that, and showing off, and all these council going, "Oh yeah, this is wonderful" and all that, and it's me such a good tradesman, craftsman, and this bloody donkey set on fire in the bonfire. All the
and was that in the background of the shot?
And this is in the middle of the shot, and there's me and my old granddad trying to get the donkey out of the fire, but she was like, "No, no, no," and fighting like donkeys are stubborn. She was just
Donkeys
she was like a gingery yellow colour.
Donkeys are the most stubborn animals.
Yeah.
There used to be one which I used to walk past every morning on the way to school, and if I didn't stop and pull some grass, it just kicked off.
Yeah.
It was just made a right racket about the fact that I'd ignored it. It's like I'm late.
Yeah,
but
it can be like that.
Lovely creatures, though.
Claire the donkey. Yeah, they could be. She had to have a cup of coffee every day. She loved a cup of coffee.
Although I have to admit, I think when I was about 6, and I was too heavy for donkeys by that stage, I was properly heartbroken because I used to love riding them.
Yeah. Well, she was a big donkey, so you could ride her all right. But she was, we used to drive her actually. We had a donkey cart we used to drive around, but never went where you wanted her to go. You just said
you went where she wanted to go.
That was it. Yeah. Definitely the boss. But that day filming, I'd never forget that. I laugh at it now, but I was mortified at the time. I was like,
and was she all right afterwards?
Oh yeah, absolutely fine. Yeah, didn't feel it. No burns or nothing. It just took the fur off her, but it was. And she just stood there like with a funny face on her, like, "Oh, this is great." The camera crew, and they were dead professional. The camera crew, but you could see the guy trying to hold this laughter in while he's holding his camera, and he's there, and he just does this like jump every now and then. And you can tell he's trying not to let this laugh out. And then the next thing, he's just in stitches and he's having to put the camera down. And he's like, and the director said, "Have you got that?" And he's like, "Oh yeah. It's like, please don't put that on the telly." But that'll be somewhere in the archives. That one, I tell you, it'll be. We're there with the David Jason one we filmed. I nearly hit him with a sledgehammer. So
it'll come
we hit one of the cameramen and
never work with animals.
Yeah. Well, like I say, I nearly hit Sir David Jason with a sledgehammer. Very close to hitting him by accident with one, and then I hit the cameraman with a piece of wood when we were filming for Country File. We had a few bloopers over the years, you know. We jumped off. We did the Country File shrimping cart thing, and me and Chris jumped off into the sea, thinking it was shallow and it was deeper than we thought. We both disappeared into the water. Yeah, someone will root them out one day. Yeah, the joys.
One of the
it takes me everywhere.
One of the problems you say referencing things disappearing into the archives. I've got a couple of friends who have worked in television all their lives, and it was the rule. I forget what year it was, but it was the rule change on the ITV side, where there was before this date, there was a commitment of X amount of time on local programming, which quite often used to get filled by things like this, craft, a crafts person in a local area, or something like that, something more unique to the area. And that piece of the rules was scrapped. So it suddenly cut the local program making down to a minuscule amount per week. And that was one reason why there was, at that time, like a lot of programs made, but then ended up in the archive and never actually gone to air.
Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? Because I found that in France, they do like we did a bit of work on was it France 3? It was for the Picardy branch. when we were traveling with a horse and wagon through France, they collared us at halfway, like, and flagged us down and said, "Can we film you?" Like, yeah. And they followed us for the day and filmed what we were doing and all that. I spoke in French on it, and they went, "You speak in English and we'll just translate it." I was like, "Yeah, all right, we'll do that." My French is terrible, but they do a lot of that sort of regional sort of. They'll focus on each region, and they'll spend quite a bit of time and investment.
Well, the people sound the people. I'm in France, by the way. Sorry, should have said.
Right.
I live down in France in Dordogne. And yeah, the people are. I mean, perhaps a little bit less so with the youngsters, but certainly, above a certain age, the people's attitude is very, very regional. They will drink the wines of that region. They'll eat the traditional food of that region. A lot of the country French do have a very, very regional attitude.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice. I like it. I mean, it's it's that individuality of it, isn't it? There's keeping regional skills and stuff as well. I'm impressed how many small cooperages and stuff like that there are still about, and all the different ways they do things, and it's and then you get like little random museums. Like I was driving through from my parents, which is in the Limousin, across to Guidelon, to Guidelon Castle.
Right.
And I went over through Vichy and up, then back up. And as I'm going through it, it was ridiculously hot, and I was in my work van. We picked up some oak, and I had my tools with me to take to Guidelon to do a bit of work with them there, because I was helping the head carpenter do a bit of wheelwrighting. And I had my oldest lad with me, and we're traveling through about 36 degrees, and in an old transit van. It wasn't nice. And we went past this spa shop, and I went, "God, I'll get us an ice cream." And I pulled in the car park round the back, and there's this beautiful big mural on the wall, and it's a country scene, and it's got a blacksmith working, a wheelwright, horses ploughing the field, and all this. I'm like, "Wow, I've got to go get a picture with that." And we get there, and there's a little plaque, and it's basically saying that it's a museum of local history and wheelwrighting. I'm like, that's amazing. That I found this little wheelwrighting museum in the middle of nowhere in France, and it's a place called the Donjon, so that the dungeon.
Yeah.
It described the town really well, the village really well. It was just nothing there, and this gentleman pops out and goes, "Oh, bonjour." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, all right," chatting away, and as best I could in my pigeon French, and he said, "Would you like to come in?" I was like, "Yeah, okay." We went in. It'd been that long since he'd had a visitor. He couldn't find any tickets. So but you've got to have a ticket. We paid. He's like, "No, no."
Oh yeah.
We found
You got to have your bit of paper in France. Got to have your bit of paper.
Yeah, they love that, don't they, over there? And,
yes.
It's like we love to queue, and they love to have their bit of paper.
Anyway,
so we went in.
There's a reason bureaucrat is a French word.
Yeah. Anyway, so this beautiful museum there, and it doesn't exist on the internet. It doesn't have a position on Google Maps or anything like that. So it was like this little gem. And of all the places in all the world for me to pull into the right car park to get an ice cream, and that was it. It's like this bit.
It's incredible. It's incredible fate. Incredible fate, isn't it? Really. Yeah.
And then, and I'm trying to explain to this gentleman in my terrible French that I'm a wheelwright, and he's like, and I don't know, je suis un charron. He's like, je fais le bois en bois. And he's like, okay. And he's looking at me like I'm a bit strange. And then I asked him to wait at the door. So, Tom went to my van, come back with some of my tools and my business card and some bits and bobs out of my toolbox. I'm showing him on my phone, and he just looks at me and he goes, No. And then he's on. I'm showing him my phone. He's scrolling through all these, and he's like, "Wait." It's like, yeah. Like, could not believe it.
You've come home.
Trust me, you have made his day completely.
Oh yeah,
you've made his decade.
Yeah. Nobody makes wheels. He was telling me nobody makes wheels. I'm like, I make wheels in England, and he's like, no, that's not possible. And it took him ages to come around, and he's like, so you make wheels? I'm like, yeah. And then I explained I was going to Guidelon, but I went to Guidelon, and no one had ever heard of this museum. And they had all these. I mean, the one thing was, it was like this very weird sort of. They had these weird automaton puppets doing all the work. That someone had taken a lot of time in setting, but they're all running off an old motor at the back that just sounded like it was on its last legs, and all the belts whirring and all sorts. And these like people swinging hammers, and then there's someone with a pit saw, and it's just it was a bit spooky, that bit. But what a place, Le Donjon.
I'll lay money that all 5 wheelwrights in the country know about it now.
Yeah. Well, there's not so many in France. You see, this is the thing. There's one fella. He's over. Is he Auvergne? And then there was one fellow in Limousin, but I can't track him down. I think he's gone. There's 1 or 2 up in the north, but I'm really struggling to find any.
No, I'm thinking that all the English ones that you'll have told them about it, and they'll all be going over to France and visiting.
Oh, yeah.
What? We have another wheelwright coming?
Yeah, I was telling my American friends as well. So if you go to France, you've got to go and find this museum. Yeah.
So, where was that then, Phil?
Le Donjon, it's called. The Dungeon. It's D-O-N, I think it is, isn't it?
Donjon.
It's
which
Donjon,
department are you in, Phil? Which department are you in?
I'm trying to think what department it was in. It's over. It's the other side of Vichy. It's like the east of Vichy and further up, and I can't remember what department it would be.
Right.
I'd have to Google it again. It's going up towards the River Loire.
Yeah. I'm just.
I've got a mate who lives in France. He loves going around different places.
That one's worth a visit. It's interesting. It's not big. It's only a tiny place. Like it's. In fact, my workshop's probably bigger, to be fair. But they've got. It's like the descriptions and the videos and that are really good. They describe it well. But yeah, it's definitely worth a visit. I mean, I'm presuming it's still open. It's been a few years since I've been.
So how we spelling this then? D-O-N.
I'm just
D-O-N-J-O-N.
Come on, damn thing! Wake up.
No.
It's just this little undiscovered gem, and I think it was like €1 for the ticket in or something. It wasn't a lot to go in. This poor fella, he never sees anyone. He just sits there in his little museum and dusts and there's a spa shop just in front of it which has ice cream. So,
hey, you know this. When you've got your apprenticeship qualifications, etc. Is there like a passing out ceremony, like that? You get Coopers, they're rolled around in the barrel and that.
Yeah, we don't do that. We're a bit boring, really, wheelwrights. We don't have any of that procedure.
Right.
I mean, they have
you were just hoping that they were going to strap him sort of like to a wheel, weren't you? And just who goes along? We've got to do a half-mile stretch.
We have a much darker history, you see, in the wheelwrighting game because a lot of forms of torture involve the wheel. So we have the braking wheels and things like that, which was different methods of using the braking wheels. And one was they would tie people to them on a wagon, and then they would drive so that they would pull the wagon so that the limbs would get smashed to bits as they were sticking past the wheel. And another way was the people would be tied to one wheel and then smashed with another wheel. I think that was the Dutch that did that one. It's like, of all the ways they could think of torturing people, a lot of them involve wheels, and it's just, I think we went down a different path to a lot of crafts and trades. Yeah. But yeah, there wasn't really. I've never really known of any passing out ceremonies for the wheelwrights. But yeah, we get to go to a nice function down in London nowadays when we do it. But
yeah,
a long time since I did mine. I was very lucky, really. invited down to London, went for a nice meal, and they looked after as well. And they invited me to be a yeoman as well. I ended up as a yeoman of the company, the worshipful company. So it's all sound. It sounds good on the CV, doesn't it? I think it's.
Oh. Yeah.
I've even got my coat of arms up on the wall over there. It's, could do with dusting though. You can't see it very well. Yeah. Did you manage to find the dungeon?
I've got a donjon, but yeah, I'm just leave it with me for a second.
I did drop a pin on Google Maps, so it's quite possible it's on there, labelled up somewhere. It is back and beyond. It's in the middle of nowhere. I'm surprised anyone lived there. To be fair, it was that remote.
That's why I don't think I've got the right one. It's called Donjon Medieval de Pont. But I don't think this is right.
Donjon.
Only Donjon I know is from Miami Vice.
Miami Vice.
Right, anyway.
You enjoyed this, Phill?
Oh yeah, I like a chat, as you can tell.
Well,
I'm quite happy to chat.
We're always here on a Thursday night on various subjects, so feel free to drop in.
Yeah, I'll try and get onto some. I'm
Anyways,
usually in here
I am
late at night
starting to fade rapidly, so I think I'm going to bid you all good night.
Yes.
Yes,
crashed out again. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, good night, everybody.
Do you want to flick co-host onto me or someone else?
Hang on, Phill. I'll find you.
That was a great talk, Phill. Thanks very much.
Yeah, no worries. It's good
Yeah,
to talk
thank
to
you very much, Phill.
We'll catch
Yeah,
up
it
again
was
sometime.
fabulous.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
No, I think I've just found it. Yeah.
Talk about keeping us hanging on.